What's up, guys? It is Modern Crescent Monday.
Monday.
I thought you were on repeat for a second. Monday.
It's glitching.
Yeah, just glitching over here. What's up, guys? This week we have Mike Whalen on the podcast. You guys have asked for more employees over employers. Well, you get what you asked for this week. He once owned his own company. And interestingly enough, the company that recruited him to work for them was specifically looking for owner-operators. And if you listen, you'll find out why.
It's a really neat business model. I was actually, sometimes you guys get into business and I may or may not zone out. And
No way.
I mean, you sucked down a flurry during this one, so.
dude, that was a flurry.
I know.
I thought you were going to tip it upside down.
That was so good.
Blizzard, Blizzard.
But yeah, I was interested. I liked it.
It was good.
And this podcast is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. When it comes to beveled siding, Duration checks all the boxes. It remains exceptionally stable, won't rot and decay, doesn't require clearance to grade deck surfaces or even roofs, doesn't need back or edge priming or sealing, cuts, sands, fills, and repairs easily, can be painted any color with regular latex paints, comes in all 16-foot lengths for fewer joints, environmentally friendly with cradle-to-cradle certification. Bottom line, Duration is easy to work with, installs and finishes quickly, and looks just like wood. For more information, check out them at durationmillwork.com.
I try and use mostly products that are cradle to cradle.
That's what I'm saying. The city's weird, and I think this goes back to our conversation just a few months ago, Mike. It's like the city's, well, you're not in New York City, but just like with everything going on, it's very weird, and everything kind of has changed. But I think for a large part of at least us and my wife, it's like we just want to get out of here. Right. It's like she's in the house with the kids all day. Yep. You know, let's just go away and just kind of escape the quote unquote normalcy of what is considered normal right now. And you know, if we're gonna be secluded, let's do it somewhere else that we can be on a beach.
Oh yeah.
How many kids do you have, Mike?
2 kids. One, my daughter's 13, my son is 8. And we just went down to New York City. I was born there. I was born in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. And then I moved up here when I was young. And we just went down for Christmas, you know, the tree, and saw a show. My neighbor actually has a brownstone down there. And, you know, the house next to me, he used, you know, it's kind of like his weekend getaway. You know, it's nothing crazy. It's a colonial. It's got a lake in the back. Mm-hmm. He did the same thing. He just got out of New York City. He works for Suffolk Construction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he's in Boston, New York City, and Philly.
Yeah.
So they bugged out as well. I mean,
it's funny. You talk about Suffolk. They just went through a major rebrand. Completely rebranded their entire company. And I'm probably getting ahead of myself here, but I'm trying to get, I want to get someone on from them because they're huge. They're national.
They're huge.
I mean, they're working across the entire company. But for them, who has such an iconic logo, this red and blue, it just sticks out. It's like, you know what it is. And they, you know, I believe it's like light blue and purple now. And this like infinity logo. I'm just super curious at what the thought process was. And I'm sure they paid a lot of money.
Sounds terrible the way that you just described it.
It's just
like
not what you
expect. Tattoo.
Well, they took this guy from Turner Construction.
Yeah, they're down. They're a big company.
They were in the city.
Yeah.
So he's the chief operations officer for Suffolk now.
Your buddy?
Yeah, my neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to know that because when he moved in, you know, I didn't know who he was. Our houses are far enough apart. I just noticed someone was living there. We went over there for a barbecue. He invited us over. I didn't know what he did. Mm-hmm. And then we're talking. There's a few other people there. And he's like talking to someone else, and I overheard him. And he's like, oh, yeah, you know, when I was building Yankee Stadium, you know, and he's talking about the project. And it's just like everything stopped. When we were sitting there, and I was just like eavesdropping. I was like, wait a minute, what's this guy do? So later in the night, I'm just asking him all these questions. That's when he was with Turner Construction.
Gotcha.
And he had been there for like 12 years. So he transitioned over to Suffolk, and that was a big move for him.
Mm.
So I'm always, picking his brain on the bigger operation because, what I do with the remodeling here is,
It's like a totally different industry, really. I mean, it's crazy to think that they're both classified under construction, but they're so wildly different. So, Mike, what is your background? You alluded to the fact you own a remodeling company, but take us back. What's a little bit about your background and how you ended up where you are today?
Yeah, actually, I'm an employee here for DBS Remodel. I started in the trades, 1990, 30 years ago. Went to trade school. Always knew I wanted to do something in construction. And then right after high school, I went to community college, but then I was doing summers for a friend of mine that had a commercial construction business. And just as you get into business, as you guys know, you talk to different people. So I started doing new home construction for a while. And then I got into land surveying because just with the companies I was working for, they weren't really established and settled. And it kind of put me at, I wasn't at ease with, I loved doing it, but I just, again, word of mouth, talking to people, I was able to lead into land surveying for like 3 years down in Westchester. I enjoyed it for a little while, but then it really got monotonous and mundane. And I missed, the craft. I was actually doing as-built on new construction, and I was just jealous of the guys doing the work.
What did you enjoy about it?
The surveying or the?
Yeah.
It's like, what's up, John? How you doing?
Good.
He just called you out on being late, so everyone knows.
Sorry, that's a no-no. You can edit that, right?
No, we're leaving
that
it
in.
But yeah, the surveying, it's interesting because of longitude, latitude, topographical maps that we had to do. We're things that you didn't think that needed to be done. Like we're measuring the height of trees coming in the airport at Westchester Airport. We're locating trees on golf courses before they're even constructed because we have to show the map of what tree, what species of tree, what condition the tree is in. And these are things that I just never thought would happen, as far as there being a need for it. So then they mapped us all out, the topographical map, all the trees, and then they come in and they plot out where all the, 18 holes are going to be based on that, just for a golf course. Then we did a tunnel underneath IBM for all their fiber optics. So they brought in a company that just goes around the world to do these tunnels. They have someone to do the locations for them, but they hire someone locally. It's almost like a fail-safe. So if something happens, they can say, hey, we hired this company, this surveying company, to come in and make sure that we were drilling in the right direction. So there was some cool projects, but over the course of time, there was a lot of monotony of you're just locating developments, and I'm locating where the macadam is coming in, the drainage, edge of houses. We're plotting houses. So I just missed getting back in the field and, doing the work. Because like I said, I was doing these locations for houses with saws were going, nail guns were going. And I just ended up giving my 2 weeks without even knowing, without even having anything lined up.
Mm-hmm.
And I put the word out, and it just, I ended up working for a guy down there that did remodeling. He was taking on a franchise at the time. It was Rebath. So it was new then. And he was excited about doing Rebath in Westchester and New York City.
Is that the slip-in cover or the, yeah?
Slip-in cover. There's Bath Fitter now. There's a few different ones. but that was newer then. So we got
Why?
into that.
I know it wasn't but why was he so excited about it? Just opportunity cost?
Opportunity of taking on a franchise because you get territory.
Mm.
So he was excited to get Westchester and parts of New York City. So, he saw dollar signs. He was a young guy. He had a lot of things going on. That was his downfall. He had commercial work going on, remodeling going on. And he said, hey, why not start a franchise? So
Why not?
Bath fitter and rebath is actually expensive.
It is?
Like, yeah, it's more than you would think. Like I had one job when I first started, and it was the craziest bathroom. There were 2 entrances to the bathroom, and they mirrored each other. So like flip flop, you'd walk in one door, there'd be a vanity on the right, a toilet on the left, and then the opposite on the other bathroom. And in between the 2 was a shared tub. So like there was only one bathroom for the 2, or one bathtub for the 2 bathrooms. And that was like on the common wall. So if you went into one, there was like a bathroom or a bathtub that you could see through into the other bathroom. So they shared one, but they got
Jack and Jill.
That's
it was
hot.
like a Jack and Jill, but it was only one bathtub. So like they shared a bathtub. So in the middle of the 2 bathrooms, there's 2 separate entrances, 2 separate vanities, 2 separate toilets, and just one tub between the 2 of them. That like there was a shower curtain on both sides.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they made a bath fitter for that?
Yeah, so like they had asked me to get a price to pull the tub and like completely remodel both bathrooms, and I guess it was too much money, so they ended up just doing the floors in them and replacing the vanities. And then I was like, "What are you going to do with the tub?" And they said, "Oh, we're getting bath fitter," and I think it was like $8,000 or something.
What?
To put this like cover, and they keep all the plumbing, and I was like, so they hit your price point. Like I didn't have anything to do with that, but it hit your price point. But at the same time, like if I would have known you were spending $8,000 on that, there could have been way better options.
Well, yeah, probably cheaper to reglaze it
Yeah.
instead of doing that. But it was expensive because they had the wall systems, the simulated tile.
But don't they squeak when you step in them? Yeah.
They fail. If they're not put in right, they'll fail.
Yeah, and then like the plumbing stays in place, right? You're not replacing drains or anything like that.
Well, that's the thing. You're taking out the overflow, and you're making it to where it's that push button drain.
Yeah.
So he got the franchise from someone else that was just losing it. So when we went, they sent us to Arizona to get certified to do this, and we worked out there for a while with their certified guys through training. So it was all organized, and you had boxes of the types of drains, and you measured the threads on them, so you knew, because there's different tubs, different styles and everything. So I came back, we got all the material we needed for jobs, but then he gave me like this plaid suitcase full of drains. And he's like, and it was all mismatched. You'd have some brass ones, some chrome ones. It was, and at the time, I stress about it now, but at the time I was like, all right, we'll make this work. And we just went at it. And at the same time, we had an open project on a remodel. We had a doctor's office wide open. It was, and coming in young, this was 20 something years ago. I just, this is just how it goes. People get upset, people work unorganized in the business, and we just roll with it. So I was doing rebath jobs, and then 2 days later, because that's the other thing, you promise a rebath job that you're going to be done the same day. So I'm traveling from Peekskill all the way down to New York City. By the time I get set up, it's 10:30 in the morning, and I'm promising them that we're going to be out of there same day with this covering the tub and the walls done. So there was times we were there till 9 o'clock at night. A lot of times you got to go to the apartment downstairs to get to the drain. It was crazy. So long story short, with how he was running his business, he went belly up. He went, he just went out. So then I just, again, word of mouth, was able to work for another guy, Pound Ridge, custom home builder. Worked for him for a while. And again, everywhere I went, I was just trying to absorb everything coming in. Because at the time, these guys, it was like the Wild West, man. It was just like they'd plug you in. They'd have guys there for certain specialties, but then they would disappear. And then there was just all these problems going on. And I was a in-house guy to where I could just get moved around. So I just wanted to learn as much as possible. And then after that,
Hold on, before, so you left surveying and went to the guy that was doing rebath.
Ask him if he kept the briefcase.
What, John?
Did you keep the briefcase?
I should have kept the briefcase. You know what I kept? I kept the guy's van because I ended up working for him. I ended up working for him for another month. When he couldn't pay me, he said, listen, I'm tapped out. He had this renovation never got finished on these people's houses. I was going back to try to help them as much as possible. And I just didn't want to split. So he said, listen, I tell you what, I'll give you some tools and just keep the van. It was an older van, but still, I didn't keep the briefcase or the suitcase. I should have.
My question was, I was going to ask is, when you started working for this guy, did you fulfill that desire to be back in the trade, or were you immediately thinking that, man, I should have stuck with surveying?
No, I was all in because of the way it was, good and bad. The way he was set up, he had so many things going that he would plug me in so many different, you didn't
have time to think.
Well, plus it was helping him out because I had the commercial construction experience. Mm-hmm. I had the residential experience, and that's the two things he was doing. And then he got the franchise, and I was all for it. So it was a lot of excitement because there was a lot of moving parts going on, and it was a lot more exciting than locating trees in the middle of the woods.
Sure.
So it was, and I look back and I'm glad I did it because the experience I got, not on the professional end, but understanding what can happen to a business when you spread yourself so thin, and see what happens to the client on the extreme end. Screaming, yelling, everything that, we don't even come close to the way that, you guys talk, the guests you have, the way that we're set up now. It was just, I look back and it's just amazing. But I did move on. Again, the connections you have, and you guys know this, just word of mouth. I just got plugged into a custom home builder working for him, and I would just, again, absorb everything possible to be of value. So we would be framing, we were doing cedar shake roofs, which I've never done before, with copper flashing. I've never done that before. They were doing lead pans for showers at the time. So it was all these things that I was, again, next level, absorbing as much as I can. So I worked for him for a while, and then, again, he had some problems with his investor. So we slowed down, and I found other work. And then I ended up going out on my own, doing my own thing, waiting for him to start up again. But I got busy enough. And then a good friend of mine moved back from being in the service, and he wanted to start a tree company. So we went partners on a tree company. And again, it's like, why not? It was just, I had not, I was living on my own. I was single in an apartment. I was able to just start a business, just from winging it. I work here at DBS as an employee. I've been here 18 years. And I think back, I was on my own in my own business for about 3 years. And, I just figured I knew enough to where I could do the work, to where I just didn't have any of the business sense on what to do. No direction, no business plan. I was just figuring it out as I went.
Well, I think a lot of people are in that position, and this tells in nicely with one of our last episodes, is that how did you get to that point? How did you get to a point where you said, I'm going to close up shop? Did you have any employees at the time?
I had some people working with me, but I did the whole 1099
Sure.
Thing because of comp at the time. Again, these
Right.
were the things I was learning.
Right.
And there was some jobs that I needed comp in order to do work on them.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up getting comp, and then I was going to get a full-time employee. So I was going through all those baby steps of starting up the company. And I was doing okay. I was taking on small things, being conservative, just little stuff.
But how did you get to the point where you decided that I'm gonna walk away from this and go work for someone else? I guess what's that thought process? Because I think about people in your position that, more or less kind of started a company maybe out of necessity and realized that, yeah, I'm a good carpenter. I know the trade, but the business sense isn't for me. And then I probably should be working for someone, but I have commitments to clients. How do I just say, hey, I'm going to leave? Was it a conversation with DBS and said, hey, I own my own company. I'm thinking about closing up, and, I'd like to come work for you guys. Was it an opportunity that was presented to you?
That's what it came down to. I mean, I just got to the point where I was, if you know the business end of it and you have structure and you have a process to your business, it becomes easier, manageable,
Mm-hmm.
and you start to scale. I was just learning the business end at the same time as working, and I was just spread so thin. And I think what it came down to, I had met, now my wife. We were thinking of the future. We were thinking of buying a house or building a house. So all those responsibilities started to creep in.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel confident enough to really be full throttle as a business. I had a good job. I was working for Gold's Gym, renovating the whole gym as my own business. But I just saw that it was just overwhelming, because even on the experience end of it and the business end of it, it was just wearing me out. So I just saw an ad that DBS put out, and they were looking for people that had their own business and were just tired of extending themselves, being worn out, too thin. So I said, why not? I just came in, talked to Brian, the owner, and it just seemed like a good fit because I was set up. I had my tools. I had some experience of being on my own. And, I've been here 18 years.
So you were initially in the field when you transitioned over?
Yep. And looking back, what I think I should have done, you're always, because I had a few people working with me, and you always think, I'm going to train this person to replace me in the field. What I should have done is stayed in the field and had someone manage, someone that was experienced in construction, that could do the estimating.
You're talking about if you stayed in business for yourself.
Yeah, looking back, that's what I should have done, because I was
comfortable with that.
I feel like that. I mean, that's probably what you were getting at. It doesn't seem like the natural progression. Like you said, you usually hire someone to train what you're doing currently, not hire someone that's going to manage you. And that's, it does seem, I think a lot of people look at that as that's backwards. I want to train someone that I can focus on the company, when the reality is, if you don't want to work on the company, you need someone that can help manage.
Right, because that's where I was weak in that area, as far as, I could, the estimating alone, I was just thinking, okay, well, how much, to be honest with you, how much do I need to make this week? And then how long is the job going to take? If the job's going to take 4 weeks, I would just plan it out that way. It was just a basic estimate, and that got me by pay things, but I didn't know anything about margins and gross profit and net profit. Forget about it. I had no idea. It's, starting out on my own.
Right.
So it would have taken me much longer. Could have done it. People do it. I think, again, this was 21 years ago. There's a lot more available today. You have these forums, these podcasts, you have the internet. You can fast track as far as information, Instagram, see what everyone else is doing, get a coach. And I just didn't have that. Not that I couldn't get it. It just wasn't right in front of me to do it. So to come on to a company that was established, had been in business for a while, was going to like JLC and the Remodeler Show. I didn't know what JLC, I knew in the magazines and Fine Home Building, I'd look at them. But I went to the show, I was blown away that there was, these guys that had been in the business teaching other guys how to do these things. I mean, that's where I met Gary Katz, and that's how, when you had him on, that's when I just sent you a message, because I remember I didn't know who he was until I went to the show, and I was talking to, I think his name is Mike Slagat, works the floor there. And I was talking to him about some things, and they were, I was just impressed that they would stop and talk to you.
Sure.
About where I was, what I was doing, about, how far I was in my career. And he just said, hey, you got a few minutes? And he walked me down to where Gary Katz was hanging out. And they just talked to me probably for about a half hour. And I was just super impressed that they would do that. So, you guys are in the same situation. Sometimes you don't realize who you're encouraging in the field, to give them a little more, inspiration, a little bounce in their step, as far as because whether you're an employee, whether you're in the field, whether you're in the office, whether you're an owner, you run out of gas. Sometimes you run on fumes in this business. And, we can speak to this industry. I could speak to it. It's pretty much all I know. But sometimes you just, you run out of gas for whatever reason at different, I call them seasons. And then other times you just you go to a show or something, or you listen to a good podcast.
That's when you gas up.
You do. You definitely do. You hear somebody's story, you have a guest on and he hears people's stories. Maybe they're going through the same stuff. And it's a huge help. It's like, you know what? I'm not the only one dealing with this tough client. That's just exhausting.
Sure. What's your role at DBS?
So you lead carpenter. We kind of followed that Tim Fowler, the way that he's kind of laid it out.
So for those that don't know, how's that set up?
So I'm working back, I'm in the field, hands on, bags on. I'm running the project. So I'll run, what we do is just residential remodeling, bathrooms, kitchens, additions, porches, basements, that kind of thing. So I'll be on the job doing the work, but at the same time managing all the trade partners that come in, electrician, plumber, everything that's needed for that project. At the same time, getting my next project started, because, the sales, they're doing the job scoping in the offices. They did all the estimating. So they'll send me out my next job and we'll go to a pre-construction meeting. So I'll get that started 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time. And at the same time, closing out the job that I just finished. So there's 3 jobs at one time that I'm working on. So you could say project manager. I know it's sometimes a loose term, but lead carpenter. So we're managing, but I'm still on the job doing work. Like I'm doing a bathroom right now. I'm doing all the tile. But what we're trying to do is, have a deeper roster. We want a tile guy for the jobs that we're doing, because we have 5 other project managers. So it's about 5 to 7 jobs going on at the same time. So if I'm tied up with tile for a week or more, nothing else is going on. If I have a tile guy come in, then I can just obviously bounce around and open up another job. So that's pretty much how we're set up. I mean, it's, our jobs, small jobs, probably 15,000. Bigger jobs can be up to $500,000 for a whole house renovation. But, we're typically between 35 and 140. If you go by numbers, as far as the size of projects, that's kind of where we are. We do about, 50 to 60 jobs a year.
Wow.
So the way that you guys are operating, it's very close or similar to being if you owned your own small remodeling business. You're just not doing the paperwork end of things right now, and there's more of you.
Yeah, not as much paperwork like as like yourself, being on there, running your own business, doing similar to what we do. It's a controlled amount of paperwork. There will be change orders, of course, that we have to do, documenting anything that changes from the scope that we have, the original scope. Just documenting the time for any other trades that come in, because they're in budget. We have an allowance for them. So I got to just document them being there, how long they were there, because I know how much they're charging us. So I have to kind of keep that. So it's not as much as if I was on my own, but it touches on a lot of the same things.
Did you ever ask why? So this business model is interesting to me. But I feel like most people, as they grow and scale their business, they want bigger jobs. They want to take on bigger jobs. You guys are still doing bathrooms, kitchens, which to me is very interesting that you're continuing to do those small jobs, probably handling some larger jobs. But did you ever ask why you guys continue to do small jobs?
As opposed to whole house renovations?
Yeah, I just feel like most people, even that we have on the podcast or that I speak to, it's almost like the small kitchens and bathrooms they leave to the owner operators, and then as they grow their business, they're looking to get bigger jobs where they can plant somebody, and they're like, "Hey, we're not gonna bother with the bathrooms. We're not gonna bother with the kitchens." It's an interesting approach to me. I feel like most people, basically, they're finding people who can run a job on their own as if it's your business, but they're handling the sales and the paperwork and the accounting and all of that, which, I mean, that makes sense to me. It looks very much like you're running your own business, except it's not your business. You know what I mean?
It does.
I don't think that a lot of people have that approach. What do you guys think?
No, I agree. I think, even to speak to myself, it's like, we've done small projects and worked our way up, and it's always about getting to exactly what you said, Tyler, like planting someone on a project and doing a whole house remodel or a new build, or, that's always been the goal. And we've slowly got away from smaller projects, and each year our threshold for small projects seems to increase. And I agree. I think it's interesting. I didn't think of it the way that you did, is kind of own a bunch of owner operators, but it's almost like he's facilitating the owner operator mentality and just taking the burden of running the business off of your shoulders, which is maybe I'm speculating, but it's probably why it was such an attractive offer. And to think back, you said that they had put an ad out saying, they were looking for owner operators.
Right.
And, hey, looking for owner operators, if you're sick of the bullshit that you have to deal with, will make your life easier. It's like, almost verbatim what Tyler's saying is like they're building this team of smaller owner operator type guys and just pulling the business side out of it.
And it is a good trade-off because you come from running your own business and you come in to work for someone. It was difficult because you got to take a back seat for a little while. And where I was running a job at a big gym, Gold's Gym, on my own, now I come to work for someone and I'm, you could be handing someone siding. You're a second man. They're not going to just make you a lead to go out there and run jobs. So now I'm just this cut man, and you think to yourself, okay, what am I doing? But I saw the value of being here. So I was like, give it time. And once you do get out to run your own job, you have that freedom. You're on your own. You have your trailer. I can come and go as I please. I got to get my job done. I got to get it done on time. So we have a certain amount of time. I have to get the job done, and within that budget. So, like this morning, the woman that I'm doing the bathroom for, she's not there. She moved out. It's in a townhouse. So I went in.
Wait, you get a customer to move out for a bathroom? I'm jealous.
I know. It's first floor. She's older. I know it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's a treat. Because you know how it is. You can leave the drop cloths down.
Yeah.
We straighten up. It's not just stuff everywhere. But you can at least you don't have to clean up as much.
Yeah, there's a little less pressure.
Right, but just the freedom to I got there at 6:30 this morning and I left early, around 3:00. And as long as the job's getting done and I keep everybody lined up, countertop being put in, and as long as everything's flowing, then.
How are they measuring that? Are you handed a project and say you have 6 weeks to complete this?
It's down like I have hours, so I have 212 hours to do this job.
You personally have 212 billable hours to do the job.
For the hours, yep. So for my hours.
So what if you go over that?
Well, I can go over, and then that's looked at. So we do the P&Ls at the end of the job, and they'll dissect. Okay, where were you on hours? Let's say I was at 2:30. Where was your allowance for the electrician, the plumber? How'd you do on materials? So if these other things were under, then I can grab some from that for my hours, but I still have to account for those hours. So they'll say, why were you over? And I'll capture, it could be a change order. So I could have 5 hours for the demo that I didn't know we were going to have to do. So I have to justify it. If I don't, I'm here long enough to where they know, but if someone coming in new, if there's jobs that they go on and they're running and it becomes routine, and then we got to catch it. Then we're saying, well, what's going on? Is it their efficiency? Are they running out to lumber yards, which can be tracked? How are they maintaining their hours? So it's within reason. And I can also use, like, I could bring a tile guy in and save my hours, but based on how much he's going to charge, can convert to the hours that I would have used. So it's not just a freebie.
You're basically getting a lump of money and having the freedom, but the support, but the freedom to approach the project any way that you see fit.
At this
right?
point.
Like,
At this point. But
yeah, within reason, but what I'm getting at is you can take from a different pot. If you're under on plumbing, you can kind of fulfill your hours. Yeah, you have to justify them, but the money, there's a lump sum. Let's play a game where all your trades come in exactly where your allowances were going to be, your materials exactly where your material is going to be, all of your costs are dead on, and you go over on your hours. Are you paid for that?
Yeah.
Like, is that coming out of the company profit? I guess is what I'm getting at.
No, I'm paid
if it's justified.
I'm paid for. I have to justify it so where we can see. It could be on the estimating end, and they know that.
Mm-hmm.
We could say, and it's happened.
Yeah, so it's coming out of the O&P essentially for the company, just making sure it's holding you accountable.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's just, so if I can justify and show it, then we can.
What if you can't justify it?
Where we can't justify it in estimating or with anything that happened on the job?
Sure. Say you decided just to slack off and it took you longer.
Well, then we would, then they start to rein you back in. I have a lot of freedom right now. They'll start to rein, there are some that are probably monitored more than others.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my hours are posted weekly in a group text with all the other project managers. So they'll have, Mike has 212 hours. This week he's down to 130. Mm-hmm. So everyone knows my hours. Once I'm over hours, it goes in the red. Mm-hmm. So you're accountable to everybody else that's running jobs.
Sure.
So nobody really wants to lose on the jobs. I mean, it becomes a little competitive. Pride comes in. But they also know if you run into something on a job, they also know who's running the job and that things do come up that are unforeseen. But what it also can do is it can help you fine tune the scope. So if we keep losing somewhere and we keep saying, you know what, we're in on all these other marks. Why do we keep losing? We're losing somewhere on scope. So it refines the scope and we're constantly refining it and changing it based on getting those hours tighter, of course, being efficient, because things are going to come up. I mean, things are going to happen that are out of our control. And that's what they very well may be. It may just be something on the job to where you lose hours. A countertop's ordered wrong. That's not on me, but I got to manage that time. And sometimes it's a couple hours talking to the homeowner, talking to the countertop company, and I'm burning hours.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I have wiggle room. Most of the time I do, but we try to be, and then it becomes when you're estimating the job. So for sales, they want to estimate competitively. So we're always saying, the hours that you're giving me on this, you're kind of killing me. But they're saying, I know, but we want to be competitive on price. So it's that balance as well. But at the same time, we don't
estimating. You have an estimating department?
That's with sales. I mean, I'm involved in it because they'll say, okay, well, how long do you think this shower will take with this layout or this design? So I can contribute to it, but they're doing it through Timberline program when they're doing the job scoping at the same time.
So are they basically selecting who they're going to have run the potential job prior to pricing that job out? Because I feel like everyone operates at a different efficiency.
They do know when they get a job, pricing it, when it even comes across the table, they'll have a good idea who's going to fit that job. Maybe it could even be a client. They'll be like, okay, we got this client that's a good fit for Pete. Or
don't let Mikey on that job. Mikey's not allowed to deal with this customer.
Yep. So it becomes it's so true.
This is a very interesting business approach.
Agreed. And the one thing that I feel like, Mike, have you ever docked yourself hours out of a day to remain competitive in that group text? Like, you know what? I was here 10 hours, but I'm going to say 8. So I look like I'm doing better than I am.
I did. And I got nailed for it. I went in. I got nailed for it.
Who told on you?
Our production manager, Nadine. Only because
Nadine.
But because she doesn't think it's fair. So I went in on a Saturday and it was just for my own conscience of wanting to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
And I could, it feels good on a Monday when you go in on a Saturday and you just get things done. I was going through materials. I was bringing some things back. I don't know, just a variety of things. I was picking up equipment. And I did. I got 6 hours in there, and I was saving time because I knew I was behind. I may not necessarily be because I was super inefficient. I don't know. It was one thing I couldn't put my finger on it, but she found out about it, and Brian, who owns the company, said, "Don't even think of doing that." And it was more because he doesn't want me just working for free on my own account. It had nothing to do with the hours, had nothing to do with being over. But there's times that for my own mindset, and whether you're an owner, you do it. You'll extend yourself beyond what you feel, not that's what's necessary, but what you may have put in for that project, and be like, you know what, I'm going more. It's only going to benefit me when I go back to continue to do the work. It's peace of mind. So I don't see it as losing, but I appreciate it on the company's end by saying, hey, you don't have to go in and just work for free, but to me, you take ownership in the project. So I guess from being on my own, you do get that mindset. You appreciate what the owner is and going through and what he expects. At this point, he's not taking his foot off the throttle, but I tell you, after he's been in business for 35 years, so he's not in dire straits if I'm 25 hours over on a job.
Right.
And we still look at the gross profit and the net profit. If I come in at 8% instead of 10%, we're okay. It's not because I was over 30 hours,
Right.
the percentage goes down. It's just when I start creeping into the, we want to be at 40%, 10% net. When I start creeping in and I start coming in at 28% total, I'm creeping in to overhead on that job, but it's only one job.
Right.
And I'm not dismissing it, but maybe for my own mentality, because I think I get so worked up.
It's interesting in a lot of reasons. And, the owner operator, Tyler, it's like, if you go over on hours on a job, it's like, you're going to estimate, all right, I got 212 hours on this job. I mean, at the end of the day, you look at it as, well, say you're making 10 grand on that, whatever, right? If you go 250, 300 hours, you're still getting the 10 grand. It's like your hourly rate drops, where it's like, this guy, this business model is putting someone like you, Tyler, into, no, you're going to get paid for every hour you work.
Yeah.
And, it's what it's doing is it's basically correcting the owner operator failure point, which is not estimating as accurately, because you're still getting the $10,000 at the end of the job, even if it takes you that extra Saturday, Mike.
And also not going and looking back at your job costs and doing, a P&L afterwards. Because
Right.
most people at the end of the day, it's like, well, I made what I made. There's nothing I can do about it right now.
Move on.
Because, it's what's going in your pocket, or you have one employee where like that's almost a constant overhead. Where if you have a bunch of people doing this, you really need to nail down on that and button that down and get that super efficient and accurate, because at the end of the day, that those are your profit margins. It's not a couple days here or there. It's really eating into the way, the cash flow of the business at that point. It's interesting. I feel like there's not a lot of business. Maybe there are a lot of businesses ran this way, and we just don't speak with people who run things this way. It's an interesting approach. I mean, it makes perfect sense. It's just,
well, I think they're in John. We've talked about it. It's like specialty trades, like roofing and siding and tile guys, and like there's oftentimes a head guy that you talk to, and he's got a bunch of guys with vans that I'll send him over there, and it's kind of like just a middleman. This sounds, Mike's situation, it seems way more structured here, and and Brian's built a business around it and a successful one at that.
Yo, John.
I didn't know. Was that for me? You teed me up for something?
Yeah, he just, I think all of that was directed at you.
Really? How is that related
That's
to me?
all right. I was talking about roofing and siding and
Yeah,
tile.
I don't think it really applies the same.
What do you? I mean, why?
Mike, are you salary? And is there any incentive for you on each project?
It's hourly, but profit sharing.
And is there any bonuses for you for upgrades or change orders?
Am I breaking up?
Someone's breaking up.
Is it me?
I think it's Mike.
I think it's just my audio.
It's the first time I talk in an hour.
Mike, it has been scrambled a few times on your end. I'm hoping it's recording a clean audio cut of yours.
So that sounds better. Can you hear me better now? I don't know why it was choppy.
That sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
That's much better.
I guess I was just learning the whole lay of the land before
That's
I
right.
piped up.
But what was your question, John? The incentives, right?
I just want to understand what incentives, if you're salary or not, and if you are they incentive backing you to get this stuff done on time? And, you know, is there a bonus if you guys finish within, because you pretty much know all the P&L, is there incentive for you to know that stuff and to dial that in so tight?
Yeah, we were, for a stretch, we were doing bonuses. So if you came in under, you know, you would get a bonus for that job. For some of us that have been here longer, that take these jobs and pretty much run them on our own, I mean, it's a profit sharing. So there's, you know, it was quarterly, then it moved to twice a year. So based on how these jobs come in collectively, then there's a profit sharing from the year. So we'll see how I'm doing. See, then you feel, since it is collectively, you're seeing how everyone's doing, how all the other project managers, you take ownership, and it's a little more pressure because you don't want to be the guy that's bringing it down, bringing any kind of profit down.
But it's still, the pressure there is it's still kind of fun because there's really no like penalty.
Yeah, there's
if you keep it up, yeah, you're going to lose your job. But
Right.
But what we're talking about now is just this kind of incentive based, you know, challenge that, I mean, I worked at a company for a short stint, very similar to this. Tyler, you'll love this part. We had an estimator that was at a different office.
I'll tell you what I love, your hair right now. That's what I love. But go ahead.
So
Check mine out.
Yeah, you gotta give a little fluff, dude.
Oh no, mine's too thick.
Throw a hand
like,
through it.
Mine's like horse hair.
Yeah, bro.
Doesn't move.
Kick it around, get some flow going. Okay.
Maybe we can all get haircuts together. All right, proceed.
No, so same as you. We'd have all the estimating would be done ahead of time, meaning there's your sales department, they do all the pre-con, all that stuff would be done without you, and then there'd be a turnover meeting for that client to meet you as the PM to run the project. And you'd have like this spreadsheet, and you have to go through the budget, and you could try and buy it out. You could try and buy things down to kind of create contingency because these weren't bid to have contingency in them. You know, it was just, there was a margin. But if you wanted to do better, you could, you know, obviously buy down demo with a different guy or framing or do the demo yourself, however you want to do it. But it's funny, once you dive into it and there's things missing, the estimator for that company was deaf. So you couldn't just call him up and be like, dude, what the F? The dude just couldn't get any phone calls. So and this wasn't when like email was super hot. This is.
Oh, he was literally deaf.
No, he probably wasn't deaf at all.
No, he was. I met him.
You that.
And it was kind of funny, but you couldn't understand. So that the whole P&L was so incredibly important because this person was remote, meaning there was a sales crew that was looking at these projects. The estimator would never see them, and they'd compile all this information through a checklist and then dump it into a spreadsheet for an estimator that would price it from past products, stuff like that. But they would have to keep a close eye on the P&L because if things were to adjust, they want to be able to adjust with it and not get caught with their pants down. That was why it was so crucial for that kind of system. And we do kitchens, we do bathrooms, and it would very similar to this. It would scale all the way up to $1 million reno, but their bread and butter was like we had a kitchen showroom where our office was, and their bread and butter was box cabinets, blasting through it and that stuff. But it was very, very similar in that aspect. And some guys would get difficult clients because they could hammer through it or whatever, but they would also, the toughest part about that business is why I left. I also got fired. First time I got fired, was they would also go through all your like cost to date and go, oh, we missed something. And then they'd literally hand you a change order to go back to that client with that you had no idea about. I remember we had this whole thing on this house and the siding was going to get replaced. And I was like, did we do the trim too? Because that's going to look like trash. Wasn't in the budget. So they would literally estimate it would write up a change order for you to then present to them. They go, hey, if you want to replace the trim, here you go. So that was the worst part of my job.
That's terrible.
It was a nightmare. So the reason why I lost my job there is I would run probably 7 to 8 of their projects, did very well. Some of those clients I still talk to. And I finished a project that was 6 weeks early. They had a 0 punch as well. No punch, no holdback, 6 weeks or whatever early, which is a big deal in that whole aspect. Mm-hmm. And I was literally going to Wellesley to get my occupancy, and the GM called me and was, I need you to write a $8,000 change order. And I'm like, for what? And they're like, well, we're going through all the numbers and we want to look a little bit better on the P&L, blah, blah. And I'm like, and I had done it. I had done 27 of them through that project. No problem. Client was great. A lot of them were stuff that maybe if you're going to do so much stuff, do the staircase over, blah, blah, your usual stuff, upgrades. And I said, no, if you want your $8,000, come and get it yourself. Like I'm getting my occupancy. So I kind of punched out. You missed your window and both left. Yeah. She fired me like 2 weeks later.
That's crazy. It's super dirty.
Yeah. That's like a straight bait and switch. I feel like it's just.
Yeah. And you wonder why contractors get a bad rap.
But they don't know any, like they were just kind of using that whole great process and great, hand holding and educational part of what I did. And they would just kind of abuse that. And it was really tough for me to do. I'm like, why wouldn't you if you're going to replace siding, how wouldn't you do the trim? Trim? Like, why wouldn't you do
because it didn't specifically say
it wasn't on the PN. It wasn't on not the PNS, but the scope. And it was, right. And I didn't write it. So it put us, and I'm sure you have this, you get put in a really awkward situation where it's like when a client asks you, you have to cover the company, but the moral obligation you have to the project and the client, it's a very fine line. I hated it. I hated the full year of it.
Oh, it sounds terrible.
Mike, do you see similar? I know you work for the company, so I'm sure you're not going to badmouth, but like similar issues
hypothetically,
does the estimator ever screw up? Or like, is it, I guess, what is the track record for upgrades and change orders on a typical project? Is it usually change order heavy, or are they pretty much, here's the information, go with it? Yeah, your audio junk. Are you on your phone? Yeah, call in.
I'm in the office.
Jesus. Budget cuts. They're gonna know you're pulling Wi-Fi right now.
He's charging them.
Yeah. Like, I want to know if they caught that they had. Do you have a company truck?
No, a company trailer. They know I'm here.
No, I'm saying when you worked on that Saturday, who ratted you out?
Nadine.
Client.
Oh, the client.
Yeah. See, it got back to somebody.
Well, the client was like, oh, because, she calls, she checks in. So like, oh, yeah, it was great. Mike was here. He was doing some stuff on Saturday. And she's like, what? because they know, because we're on T-sheets, so she knows when I'm in and when I'm not and where I am. So it didn't show up.
Sneaky. Yeah, the company I was with, they had us do, Nick, we talked about it. They had us spring and summer, you could take Fridays were off, mandatory. So the office was closed and all their fleet of trucks was off the road for a day. And they did the calcs that you'd save more money because you'd be able to get longer hours in Monday through wet Thursday because it's spring and summer. So that's kind of how they did everything was calculated down to a dime. And it's funny going back, I wrote some notes down earlier, is that it's weird how the pride thing comes in, not about like most of the podcasts about craftsmanship and design and detail. Mm-hmm. It's about hours, efficiency, and how you scale against somebody else managing stuff. And I remember when I was with that company, I worked the Metro West office and they had a Cape office that was well established. And I would go down there and rock it and be like, it's me versus the world.
Dude, I was on a job today where super random, but the house was like an 80s custom and they put this massive like planter in and we were like ripping up the tile floor and I just assumed the little 1 foot high wall was just like wood framed and wrapped in tile and it's all block that like goes down to the foundation. Like, this sucks. Like ripping out so much concrete. It's like I really did not see this one coming at all. Like I thought I was going to be ripping out like a little 12-inch wood stud wall and it's like I rip out one course of block and then it's still above the subfloor, so I'm ripping out another course of block.
Like those will haunt you forever. I remember I priced out a roof for my wife's friend in New Hampshire, and you went up on the roof and like you peel back the first couple layers and be like, oh, see the cedar. I'm like, oh, this cedar. They did that. They did like the first 3 feet of cedar back in the day. Yeah. Then you get up there and roof it after you do it. And you're like, nope. The whole thing was a cedar roof at one point. And you're like, oh my gosh.
They used to do just the first 3 feet?
Yeah, like that was kind of like, I don't know if they stripped it that way, but I had done a lot of roofs where the first 3 feet was cedar. I don't know if they did it for a flare effect or what, and then the rest of it would be asphalt.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, it's probably the first couple feet. And that roof was the whole thing. And it was like 3 layers of asphalt too.
That sucks.
No bueno.
That's how I felt today. It's like even I expected it to take like a couple, I don't know, maybe 1,500 pounds of crap out of there. And I'm at like 4,000 pounds of stuff I'm taking out of there now. Like
I think you got to start talking in tons at that point.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's like when it's a baby, it's like, oh, 24 months. Yeah. It's like, no, man, that's a kid. It's like you're at 3 tons.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm sitting there and Ryan and I are dying and I'm in this like 4-foot hole inside of a house trying to figure out what the heck they did. And I'm like, I did not see this coming at all. I thought we were going to be in and out super quick. I was like, I may have to go to the homeowner on this one. I gotta like, they have like, it's so weird. They have this one wall that's like half bearing on a rim joist and the other half was bearing on like some sideways pancake blocks that really shouldn't be doing anything. But I'm like, I feel like it's kind of structural there. I don't know. This is super sketchy.
But Todd, you just said I might have to go to the client on this one. What's your threshold at that point? Like,
yeah, that's what I want to know.
Right?
Like, when does he? All right, now I gotta go.
Like when you hammer your finger on that's one thing, and you're like, you know what? Forget it.
No, so like if it's little stuff, this was supposed to be super quick. Like it's mostly a hardwood flooring job. So getting the hardwood sub in, like getting the tile off the floor. And the one concern was my biggest concern going into this job, which I like prefaced him on, was that it was what we call like a Jersey mud bed where they just put lath and like stapled the lath down and then thin set and tile right on top of it. I was like, I don't know if we'll be able to salvage your subfloor. Like, I don't know your subfloor may be trash that we're not able to get hardwood flooring on it. So that was like what I thought would potentially be a change order. And then when we started chiseling the tile off of the knee wall, and I was like, tell me that's masonry. And Ryan's like, I think it is. And I'm like, oh God, whatever, like if we have to go get a saw, we'll grind off the 1 foot of masonry. And then I was like, maybe they just put a course on top. So I like get a sledgehammer and I whack a course off top. And then I'm like, nope, it's still above the subfloor. So at this point, I'm like thinking to myself, I probably have like an extra day between getting this stuff ripped out, getting it cleaned up, a couple $100, dumping it. And then I have to like fix and restructure stuff that was like block tied into trim that I thought was wood with just like drywall up against it. So I'm just, it was one of those jobs where I'm there for like 2-3 days, and now I'm there for like 4 or 5 days where I don't have any wiggle room to eat that.
Yeah. So
my threshold is probably that. Like normally there's some pad in the job. And like there's this job, there's just there wasn't anywhere to pad anything.
Mm-hmm.
So like on a bigger job where we can kind of do our due diligence and really dig into things and multiple site visits and like walking through with subs and really peeling back the layers and kind of seeing what's going on, I'll either preface that entire conversation with this could be the potential issues, or even in like my scope of work that's going to a contract, kind of give the customer a heads up. But this was just like not on my radar. And it's the type of job where you can't put like, oh, we'll just round that week up, or put an extra 2 days, or put an extra whatever it is worth of time on the job, because that takes it from being like X amount to 2X. So I think it's,
and that goes back to like the owner operator. It's like you're basically absorbing a lot of this. Mike, in your case, if you had been on this job and you ran into a masonry wall when they assumed it was wood, what's that process?
But he's got no emotional connection to that client at that point, right?
Mike,
it's so
right?
Yeah, it's so early that he didn't price it. It's somebody else. So correct me if I'm wrong. You have kind of this zero empathy, right? You can just be like,
No, I mean, we're still, for me, I know that we have that budget. And the last thing I want to do, we have that conversation at a pre-construction meeting. When we sit down and I meet the client for the first time, we go over things that can be extras or change orders. So I tell them that we have to address it right away, because as you guys know, and John, like what you were just saying, at the very end is the worst time to bring all these to the forefront and tell them how much they owe. So it's really having that conversation right when it comes up, whether it's big or small, especially small, because they add up. So they say, oh, just throw in 3 more recessed lights or 6 more recessed lights. And they're like, all right, well, I'm going to keep track of that. Because then when you want to paint into the dining room, and then you want to add a little more trim in the living room, it's all little stuff that is just going to add up. So each time I'll make a change order. We use builder trim as well, and they'll get a copy of it. Production will get a copy of it. And it's just keeping them apprised the whole way. And then this way they know where they are as far as their budget. So that's how, it's just, so here's an example. I just went to my next job as a kitchen, had a pre-construction meeting, sat down with the sales consultant and the client. We're going over the scope of work, which is a kitchen, and the homeowner, Alex, he says, I tell you what, when you're doing the kitchen, level the whole floor for me. And it's an older house. I mean, it's probably 1940s, 1930s house. I mean, it's sagging, and there was different additions put on. So I stopped him right there and I just said, so this isn't in the scope. He's like, no, but I just want it done. I said, as long as you understand it's hourly, I'm gonna tell you each day how long it is, how long we expect it to take. And then at the end of it, just agree on all the work that was done, all the material that was put into it. Because I think that's on the front end, like you're saying, of a project, the homeowner, the client can get very excited to just add stuff. Oh, just throw this in here. It's different on the back end. On the back end, they're trying to rein it back in, like, whoa, we see how much we spent.
Reality's already hit.
Right.
Right, exactly. On the front end, they're all excited to keep spending.
Yeah, but so Mike, I guess what I was trying to say was, with a lot of owner operators, there's this connection with the client that's happened over the last 3-4 months previous to the product starting up. I found it so much easier because I had my own company and then working for this other company, being a PM, where like you go in, you understand the scope, and then as soon as it changed, you'd be like, all right, hey, this is out of scope. There was something about it where you were almost just a delivery person. There was no emotional connection to what was happening. It was like, oh, like I'm thinking of Tyler's situation where he's cutting it out and finding this block. You just stop everybody as the PM or lead, like you'd be like, oh, I hit something that's out of scope because I have 287 hours. It's going to take me an extra 10 hours or 100 hours. I'm not paying for it. So it made it easier that you're not like, oh, I'm letting these guys down. There's not that whole voice in your head going, dude, it was so tight. Like they didn't get the Ilve stove. They got the Wolf. Whatever they made as a sacrifice. And now that dream could be shot too, because we just ran into this that was out of your control. But as the owner operator, this is the voices in your head, like your left shoulder and right shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that this is a super small job, and it's like filling in while I'm waiting for permits to come in. And it's like people have been getting a hold of me for months where I'm like, all right, I'm finally have some time to like scoot and get all these little miscellaneous odd jobs done. And I don't have that relationship with the customer because it was like a couple of quick meetings, a measure, a phone call. We're not doing like a job that we went through the design process for either. So I think, if I was going to be there for 3 weeks or a month, I probably wouldn't say anything and just be like, at the end of the day, I missed a couple of hours. We'll make up for it. But then it's like, all right, so it's a quick in and out job. This could literally be like, all right, I'm doing this job for free now.
Right.
Which like, I don't know if it's here or there. It's the same thing at the end of the day, but I feel like on a bigger job, you give yourself a little more wiggle room, or dealing with the customer for so long, you have that relationship where you're just going to be like, you know what, I'm going to throw this in for you. I know we'll make it up on the back end, or when we run into something down the road, maybe we'll approach it, or we'll have that conversation at that point, and just, know that 2 months from now when we're wrapping things up that we did this, and I'm not going to charge you for it right now. I don't think that it makes sense on a job like this, because I'm like literally doubling my scope.
So Mike, what's your threshold? Like when it's out of scope, how much do you get when it's a mom of 3? This is her dream. What's your like, oh man, I'm crushing her dream right now. Before the director of ops comes in and tells you to write the CO.
I mean, me personally, I probably get too attached to the client, more than I should have that separation. And you're right, the owner operator is going to feel that more in the sense that you're talking about. I agree totally, because as a project manager, as an employee, there is that you're detached from that in a way, but it also depends on the personality, because I tend to get probably too attached to where I take responsibility for it. Not that it's something that I missed. I mean, if it's something that's unforeseen in the walls, but here's what we do to answer your question. If we see that and we know it's an expense, there's our protocol for a change order on how much we charge. What we can do is I would talk to production or Nadine or whoever sold the job, whether it was Bob or Michelle, and I'd say, listen, we ran into this. This is going to hit the budget pretty hard, and we can negotiate talk to the client and say, listen, we'll just do it for cost. We're not going to do it to where I would typically do it with a markup, with the profit and included. Or, you know, we do it for materials.
Let me stop you there for a second. Why would you do it for cost? What was that threshold that you were doing? You decided that you presented at cost?
If it's something that was totally missed on the scope, but we have to do the work.
Like obvious.
Or,
yeah.
And it's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
The threshold is we have to do this work. There are times that we miss it and we just have to eat it.
Right.
That does happen.
But
I guess that was my question.
But production's going to go, hey, can you go back to the client and negotiate it until they turn me down, and then we'll eat it?
I did it. I did that twice. I did it on one job. We were demoing tile in the kitchen. And when we demoed it, we do have a clause in the scope that says the underlayment, the unforeseen underlayment, there's allotted hours. This underlayment, this was plywood nailed like with ring shank screws every inch and a half through this whole kitchen. Holy cow. The whole kitchen and foyer. And it wasn't coming up with roof rakes. It wasn't coming up. We were sitting on buckets with cat's paws. We have pictures of it.
Just shredding the plywood. It's like plywood pulp at that point.
It is. It is like dry chicken, just pulling it off.
Dry chicken.
Dude, it's like wood chicken.
It is. It's horrible. So I had myself and two other guys, and I just call it burning hours. I knew we were burning. And I told them, I said, we're burning. And we were sitting there for 3/4 of a day, 3 guys. So what I did do is I went to the client and I said, listen, this was unforeseen. We have X amount of time invested. Do you see that it's fair that we can split this? This is how much it was if we split it down the middle. And he said, yes, I see that's fair. So it was a reasonable client willing to meet us halfway.
Let me ask you this. I keep stopping you, sorry, but if
That's
it was, you said something interesting. If they were a reasonable client. Now, if they were an unreasonable client, would you have said the full price? How would your approach have changed if it was, you knew they were going to be unreasonable?
Well, I still think it's good for them to know how much time we invested and how much it costs us.
Yeah.
So this way, when they say, no, that's not on us, that's on you, I still think it's important to show the client that you are absorbing the work, whether they feel, with our experience, and I get it, you're coming in, they're going to say, hey, you market yourself as someone that says, you're a professional. You should know this. You should know that you're going to get into this type of situation. But sometimes we don't. Or I just had a bathroom I did. You try to capture everything with layout. They had a waterfall shower head. I put it at the standard. We put them around 82 inches. It was the shower head that came out, dropped down another 3 inches. It was right over top of the homeowner's house or head. And he said, I believe that's your oversight of not communicating to me that should be up higher or in the ceiling. So I said to him, you're right. I usually go through these things. This is one oversight. This is going to cost me time to repair the tile. It's going to cost the plumber time to undo this and move it. And I just asked them, I said, with that time, do you feel it's fair that I can charge for my time? That one, I didn't have much to stand on, and I get it. But I just like at least having that conversation.
Really?
I guess when you present it,
like you had that conversation even though you didn't ask the client where it should go. You just went with your
Well, you know why I had that conversation is because now he wanted it in the ceiling. And that's the only reason I brought it up, because at first it was like, hey, we got to move it higher. So I was like, okay, I'll move it higher. But now we're going in the ceiling. We could barely get in there. So now we weren't originally if we were going in the ceiling originally, that would have been in the scope for sure. So to me, it seemed like he was capitalizing on something I missed.
Mm-hmm.
So all I was doing was respectfully asking him, with this extra time I'm putting in, how do you feel about my time that is involved and the plumber's time? And I got it. It was a long shot, but it's a conversation that I have gotten used to having. And I don't think it's respectful, it's open, but that's something small. When it comes to something big, I think the communication is
Did you
key.
have that conversation for yourself, or did you have that so when production asks you, you can,
Both.
with an open conscience, say, hey, I did go back to them and ask for this?
Both, because I always have to come back with doing my due diligence to protect the scope. But however, I'm not going to take advantage of the client, because ultimately it came down to where they're going to be most happy with it, honestly. So we didn't get paid for that, and that's fine. But I just wanted to have that conversation. So that,
I mean, you're
it's
volleying the
conversations like-
decision into their court. It's like you're leaving it up to them. And you're right. It's when it's a small token, and you can afford to lose it. You can put it in the client's court and say, do you think it's fair that we split this? And if they say no, not a big deal. But you're allowing them to be the decision maker, where instead it could have been, all right, here's a change order, and then you fight about it.
Well, it's also the fact, like you said before, is that you bring up to their attention that these are things that you've done for free, that, this may have been something. So you may have had good faith with them already up to that point. So it may have been a wash.
It's so hard doing stuff for free, though, because it's never remembered.
Yeah, and then
agreed.
do you say something? Do you not say something? That's something I run
it's
into
like the
all the
pocket door
time.
situation.
Yeah.
It's like you upgrade it, and then she's like, "Is it always going to be that hard?"
Do you want to hear something? I get a text message from her. So we ordered everything. She very slow to make decisions, and everything was ready. She could have had things ordered so long ago. She couldn't make decisions without everything being in the bathroom minus the mirrors. So when we ordered the mirrors, one was on back order. So we charged her for everything. The mirror finally just came in, and it's like $75 cheaper than when we initially priced it. And she's asking me what she's going to do about the $75 credit. And there's a lot of free things that I did there. There's a lot of upgrades that I did that I didn't mention that maybe I should have. There's also hey, in my contract, it always says if we're matching a wall that I assume the customer has the paint, because I know if I have to get paint made and I have touch up where I'm painting one wall, it's never the same color. So I don't want to be responsible for that. And she didn't have any paint. So I spent $90 on a couple of gallons of paint, and was like, should I charge her for this? I don't want it to look like I'm nickel and diming her. I'll just eat that. It was a big job. I made my money, everything else. And then it comes back to hey, it's on sale. Emailed my wife about it, because she's the one who ordered the mirror. And then she sends me 2 or 3 texts about it, while she still owes me money because I had to get her carpet kicked back in, because they had a flood that I went over on a Sunday and helped them dry out. And then she still wants to be hey, so it's $75 cheaper now. And I just I don't even want to respond to the text message.
I got the answer.
What?
You have a TRG gift card printed. And
yeah.
You give her a gift card.
It's just
for a future.
Dude, the most upsetting part is that
I like it, John.
Right?
I didn't
for that client. It's perfect
you for
anything. a future project.
Right, but then and it's not even about the money.
No, of course,
$100. It's not. But just the fact that.
But this is why I think what Mike's situation is so interesting, is that he's got a manager holding these things accountable, where it's
for sure,
oh, you bought $90 of paint in our contract that says she should have had it. Yeah, we charge her for that. And the reality is she would have been fine paying it.
Yeah.
But
it's more process and less emotional.
Yeah, we build these emotional credits toward the job of like, we'll do all these free things because it's going to make us look great. Where it's like, if we charge them for all these free things, their thought process of us changes zero.
Dude, like when I ripped open the floor joists were completely hacked, like worse than I had anticipated. And I was like, I brought her upstairs. I said, listen, this is not what we anticipated. This is not in our scope of work. We probably have money in the job right now that I've accounted for. Like, I'm just going to replace these for you. If at the end of the job, we kind of ate it and I need to like recoup these costs, we'll figure that out at some point, but I just want to bring this to your attention. Then she wants $75 back. And I'm like, I'm so annoyed by it. Right. Dude, it's just take, me. But it's super upsetting when you don't, like, I'm always on, like, I don't want to tell people, hey, I just did this for you for free, but having the conversation where it's like, hey, this is what we ran into. This is the amount of time that it took. And like, even if you were to have like a running change order where you're not getting paid for them until the end of the job, just having them sign off on that and kind of keeping tabs on that. And then you can assess that at the end of the job, what you feel is fair and what's not fair. If you want to throw those freebies in at that point, I think that would be amazing to look at it at the end of the job and be like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to charge them for the paint. I'm not going to charge them for the floor. Like, we made our money here. They were really good customers. This will come back tenfold.
Well, the goal is never to put on the scoreboard. But
yeah, exactly.
The intent is that, like, people always ask us about, like, hey, what about the management number on your quotes? And I'm like, talk to one of our past clients. I guarantee you every single one of them will say whatever the budget was, they overmanaged. They didn't manage the project based on the budget they had in there. They managed the project based on what our needs were and what the product dictated. And anyone will say that when they're asked that question. It's the same as references for resumes or projects. You're going to get the best. The thing is asking the direct questions and having those and not putting on the scoreboard. Like, we don't usually do it, but a client will be like, yo, you see that? I'm up 2 right now. Like, I'm not going 3. Like, give me something, They want to be even.
Yeah. It's crazy. It just,
well, the other thing we do is we'll put, if we don't capture it, through, if there's something that was an extra or a change order, then we'll just put a no charge. We'll put a credit. We'll just show that we put in time to correct something, and we'll just put no charge. So at least that they're made aware of the work we're doing. Because I think that's important. It's not to, dilute them with, hey, look what we're doing kind of thing. It's just saying, hey, we are doing these things. They may not be in the scope. It may be unfair to try to capture them now, but we just want to show you the amount of time that it took, and it's a no charge. So that'll be in the final bill. So they'll run down, and, whether there's credits or they're still owed some change orders, they'll go down the line and say,
are you putting a dollar amount of what that no charge is so they know, oh man, they did $5,000 worth of no charges?
If it's a substantial amount, we will, but if it's something minor and small, we won't.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's expected, we won't. So like I said, we're not going to say, hey, we vacuumed your carpet when we left, no charge. We're not going to start, you know what I mean? We're not going to kill them with this little stuff. It's just like Tyler said, if I have to sister some joists and it took a little bit of time and you're trying to work with them, and at least in my case, if I'm good on hours, or in your guys' case, you're good on budget, you just throw it in there, and you want to show them that you're taking care of stuff along the way. Otherwise, you're giving it away, and it's a value. I think if it's done properly, it's a value to the company to show that you're taking care of stuff that could be outside the scope.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to walk the job during those times with the customer too, if you have that opportunity to at least articulate and explain what's going on, and they can see it, and then having the conversation where like, look, we're not looking to kind of capture or recoup this right now, but I just wanted to bring this to your attention as to what we're running into. I think for me, that's always seemed like the best approach. It's tough even putting it on a bill at the end, because I feel like it's like you're almost looking to offset something where, the problem with a lot of small guys is that your change orders come at the end, where you keep note of them, you discuss them with the customer, you don't actually get them a price, and then you bill on the final bill, where it's like, oh, well, here are all your change orders. And then you're saying, well, I didn't charge for this and I didn't charge for that, where it'd be nice to kind of be more on top of things and get those change orders in place during billing, routine billing, and then, hey, we ran into this and we didn't charge for this, so that it's not at the end of the job where they're looking through and it kind of appears as if you're going tit for tat.
Yeah, I know you have to definitely be careful with that, because you don't want to. It's just, I think, a discussion that I have with the sales consultant that's going back. I mean, there's constant communication through production, sales, and myself. And when they go back for the final bill, it's having that discussion of the best way to do that exit, to where it's not being petty. So I think that just, and, depending on the client, but it's, you're fighting for that budget as well on our end for what we sold it for, just
Right.
as the client is. It's that dance that we're doing all the way through. So you also don't want to leave a bad taste in their mouth, but you also don't want to be taken for, because you'll continue to lose money giving stuff away.
I think I heard something.
Preach.
I think I heard something earlier today that I think relates really well, is that, people don't want to have their expectations exceeded. All they want is their expectations to be met. It's nice when they're exceeded, but it's way more important that they're at least met, because I think we get wrapped up in it. And I'm relating this to the freebies and the change orders. It's like, they expect to pay for the work. They're not expecting us to do work for free. The little tit for tats or whatever you want to call them. It's like, if they're communicated correctly and it's actual work, it's like they understand, and we get this, we have this emotional connection. John, you're absolutely right there. It's like we make these emotional decisions, but if we're hitting their expectation and we're charging them for the extra work that is rightfully, billable, I mean, we're still within their expectation there. And, and I think that, I wish I remember where I heard it, because it was a great quote.
Just make it up. It's yours now.
It's dash Nick Schiffer. But it really speaks true. And I think that's really why I'm going to say it again. It's like, that's why I'm so interested, or I think it's so interesting, the position that you're in, that, Tyler, I think if you had someone managing above you, right, to run the business, like, that stuff wouldn't be missed. And it wouldn't necessarily hurt you, from the client relationship standpoint. There's definitely a threshold, but I think in a big way it would, you would be more profitable on jobs. Your communication would,
it becomes more of a transactional service.
Yeah.
Then instead of this, like, I don't want the transaction.
But I don't think it necessarily has to be like, it doesn't become, I don't think it becomes one or the other. I think there's just a blend. Like, what is so bad about making sure that you're compensated for everything that you do?
No, agreed. I'm not disputing that. It's the emotional connection part where we don't charge for every single thing.
Yeah. I don't think that you want to. It just, I don't know. I always equate things to, it could be going out to a restaurant or going to your doctor.
Right, you get a free drink.
If you went to a restaurant, and you ordered like or you demanded that they put all this extra stuff on your pizza and then be like, well, you got 3 extra toppings. Of course, we charge you for it. Well, we didn't know that it was going to be more money. Like, I don't know. I feel like I would be more fair. If somebody put effort or time or money into something, I would want them to be compensated for that. I wouldn't want to try and get something for free.
Right.
But I don't know if I guess I'm confusing both things because I think I'm talking about the experience.
No, yeah. Well,
Like
yeah.
the experience of it. If you go to that restaurant
That just goes
and
to
the
delivery.
waiter sucks, it doesn't matter what I'm going to pay the bill regardless.
Mhm.
But that experience, I don't know, it's weird.
The experience shouldn't be a good experience because you got something for free, you
Right.
know? Like the experience should be the experience, whether you're getting charged appropriately for it or not. And I think that we take on this mindset that we're trying to hit this price point and we're trying to make everything fit within budget and that we should know everything going into a job where I don't know that's I don't think that necessarily is indicative of what the experience was like on the job. I think that you could charge people for change orders and you can have a very articulate contract that states exactly within scope, and maybe it's $5,000 more on the job, $10,000 more on the job, and it could still be a really good experience. I don't necessarily run my company that way, and there's times that I wish that I could because I eat a lot of money doing so, but I think that we pin a lot of that on ourselves.
But I also think that when we all talk about dinner, we all know what dinner's like. We've all been to a restaurant several times. The experience part of it is a new restaurant and new people. For most people in this industry, they don't do renovations all the time. So it's completely different. The expectation is so out of whack and there's such a gray area that tensions are really high for a lot of it. And no,
I do. But it the same, like a restaurant analogy would be like, hey, I ordered a cheeseburger for dinner with French fries, and they brought me a cheeseburger and French fries and chicken tenders. And then I got the chicken tenders.
There was a tot inside.
No, I got the chicken tenders for free. So now I'm going to go back to that restaurant all the time because I got free chicken tenders.
But do you go up and pay for the tenders?
If they
gave them to you, but do you?
No, if they
go up and go, hey, you gave me tenders that I didn't ask for or pay for. I ate them. Do you go up and give them $5.75?
I wouldn't eat the chicken tenders without being like, oh, hey, we didn't order these. Like we were at the dinner for the first time in however long, they brought us something to our table that wasn't ours. And I was like, oh yeah, we didn't order this. And like being COVID, they basically have to throw it out at this point. But I'm not the type of person that'll just be like, oh yeah, they brought us mussels. We didn't order these. Let's eat these real quickly so we get them for
That's
free.
because you've been to a restaurant before. But now imagine never going to a restaurant or that restaurant and not knowing.
What about buying a car, John? It's like I feel like if I go and buy I hate buying a car.
Yeah, they say.
It's like it's a sucky experience. But you meet with a good salesman, he makes.
I also don't buy fleets, so I can't imagine what you go through.
Text message. Hey, deliver one of these and one of those.
Give me the same one as last time.
But when you deal with a good salesman and he makes the process easy, right? That's actually a great example. Like two of our vans, I had bought one of our first vans on it. And then after that, it was literally, I was like, hey, I want to work with you. I don't really want to come into the dealership. Can we make this process easy? Yeah, you know what? Why don't I do the paperwork? I'll come to your office. You sign it and I'll get the vans delivered. It wasn't, I didn't care about the negotiation side of it where it's like, yeah, I could have negotiated maybe $1,000, $2,000 off the van, but it was the experience. He made my life easier.
You probably paid a little more. If he said, hey, I got to charge you for that, you may have been like, you know what? I'm not going there. I'm fine with that. I'll pay the extra G.
Right. And it's like that, like from the experience, I agree with you. Like the restaurant, yeah, I wanted to bring up, like, if you go to a really, a fancy restaurant that you don't go to all the time, and it's like, this dinner is going to cost you $1,000, but the experience is going to be out of this world, right?
Nick's buying fleets and $1,000
dinners. No, I'm just saying, like, let's use an extreme example. Like you go out for a crazy dinner and you know it's gonna be expensive, but like, and they're gonna charge you for everything, cleaning the table off, $50. But it's like the experience was so good that, you know, like, whatever. This was such a great night. I think that's really the connection that has to be made, is that if you can back up the experience with every dollar that is billed, then yeah, I mean, people are fine paying that.
You know what's
How
funny?
about if you went to go get an ice cream sundae, John, and you were like, you know what, this would be better with chocolate sauce, and you sent it back, and then they put on chocolate sauce, and then you're like, you know what, I think we could use some Reese's Pieces on here, and then you sent it back and got Reese's Pieces, and then you're like, you know what, whipped cream would be good too, and you just kept asking for more. Like, they're still giving you the sundae, but at what point are they gonna be like, hey, we have to charge you for all this extra stuff?
No, I mean, I guess it's on the price, and you're assuming you get charged. You know, I guess my point with the restaurant thing, to put it to bed, is that whenever anybody, like, let's just say the in-laws, because I really don't look at the bill that closely, everyone's looking for that. Did they catch all the drinks? Okay, and then if you get the free drink, you're like, yeah, dude, I got it. Like, but if they charge you for an extra drink, you're immediately sending that bill back because you're like, yo, I didn't have that second, whatever, scotch. Like, am I right? Like, I feel like that's the analogy that clients are like. It's like, you know what? I'm going to
with
get
the
what I
exception
can.
of that, they're not looking at, like, they're looking at to make sure nothing extra got on there. They're not not
exactly.
excited about the fact that they got something free or appreciative.
They're just
Where,
taking
like,
advantage of it.
you would come back and you'd thank them, like, hey, appreciate the extra scotch.
But you know what would happen though? You'd probably tip that person, that waiter, more because they missed it. So
100%.
The waiter gets,
Or your wife's going to be like, hey, they didn't charge us for the drinks. Make sure you tip them on top of the drinks.
Exactly.
Right. But that's not the way, to Tyler's point, our industry's looked at completely differently.
Yeah.
But that comes down
That was
to
a fun
owner
road. I like
operator.
that.
We're buying vans and going to expensive dinners
And eating ice cream sundaes.
with no cherry on top. You never got to the cherry. I was waiting
Don't
for
do
it.
cherry.
What?
No.
Can I have it?
Hot sauce and Jimmy's, baby.
I'll take your cherry.
Everyone just shut the radio off.
Mike was gonna say something, and he's literally just like wordless.
I'm not involved.
Did I just ruin this? Come on, guys.
No, I was letting you go with the cherry.
Grow up.
But coming back to the owner operator, you have an employee that's out there running the job. And you know what happened early when we have a project manager, a lead, or an employee out there? They're giving stuff away. That's what we had seen in the past. So the way to harness that is to capture everything. So that's the reason why. So if you have somebody on your job as an owner operator and you're giving them that freedom with the client to make decisions and purchase material, we've seen in some cases in the past where you'll see the molding up, you'll see the extra work done, and that's how you can lose it as an owner. So I think it's getting into the habit of identifying it either internally or with the client as well, because if it's something we could capture, we've just been in a situation to where we look at it afterwards, after everything's done, the client pays, we do the review, the job scope or the job analysis, P&Ls, and we say, hey, there was this and this on this job. Could we have captured that? And in some cases, many cases in the past, it's like, yes. So we're leaving money out there. And I think that's that fine line you got to walk. And you guys can appreciate that as owners. Once you give that freedom away to someone to run a job and you're not checking in on that job, maybe twice, maybe once, until that job is done. You just got to hope that it's not being given away, because then you're not going to get it back.
Well, I think it's the whole job of the the director of ops, is that if you start going in on Saturdays, they'll go, you know what? If you're going to work on Saturdays, I would have given you another job, because it's opportunity cost for them that it's bandwidth. If you're able to take more on, and vice versa, if you keep giving in that 30 hours a project, their job is to add that up over 4 projects and go, that's another project. Within 2 months, we could have fit in another project that's X amount of profit that you may be looking at it like you're giving up 17 to 21 hours. But the reality is it's a huge thing if it becomes part of a routine or a habit, which gets back to the calculus and of it. And is, I guess I like it more. I want all the numbers dialed in. Like, I enjoy buying out stuff. And that actually leads me to my other part is what happens if it's not client related and it's like plumbing, and then you have your plumber go through this project and they go, you know what, you had $2,500 in there and they price it at $5,000. That's completely internal. How are you guys handling that?
So that's on me, and then I have to have that discussion with the plumber, and I have to break it down because I'm on site. So he has to break it down to me to where did we start, spending more money. And
you get to vet if it could be a change order or not.
Well, he has to tell me, he knows the scope because I tell him the scope of work. And I tell him to separate everything that is extra. That if the client wants an extra toilet and a faucet put in the half bath, separate that from your original bill. So we know that that's additional work. But I have to have that conversation with the electrician or the plumber. And I have to then bring that information back and to be able to justify it.
Yeah.
And
An
if
extra
not,
toilet and fixture and a half bath, is that like a 2/3 bath at this point?
Bro, you had a
Not
tub.
full.
You
It's
had a
not
tub
full,
on a
right?
party wall. Okay.
Well, it's still not full.
Who's
Like, I feel
talking?
like full, you need the shower or the tub, right?
yeah, maybe it's 3/4.
So do you have internal change orders at that point? Meaning that let's say it was just where the estimator had the toilet moving to in that bathroom, and then where the vent was actually located when you pulled it apart, it's deemed between you and production that it can't be a change order going back to the client. Is that an internal change order so that where your budget numbers don't look out of whack compared to your other PMs that are running projects?
Right. Yeah. It'll be handled internally. And
You
it
said
may
you're using
not.
Bulletron, right?
Yes.
For everything? Job costing, budgets, everything?
I'm using it for schedule, change orders, daily logs on my end.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're trying to utilize more of it, so we're probably using I don't know, maybe 50%. We're trying to use more and more, and the office is trying to use more and more because they had other programs that they were using that they're trying to change over to, so that Buildertrend can be the primary.
Well, I think about what John just asked about the internal change order, because we've oftentimes done that where it's like, you know what, this is a change order to the job, but we can't go back to the client. So we're actually doing an internal change order that gets, I'm using air quotes, funded by us. We're paying it to allow the budget to reflect accurately.
Yeah, for the next budget to be written.
Correct.
For an excessive amount, beyond what was allowed, you mean, for the plumbing?
Yeah, I mean, or if it's it might be we'll write off as a variance, so it ends up going in our builder variance, which is what I like about Buildertrend, is that we track anything that we are giving for free under a builder variance for a number of different reasons.
How big is that tab?
Depends on the job, John.
I'm sorry.
It's hefty sometimes, but listen,
it's the biggest tab used.
It's like, what's that big number?
Nick,
don't worry, but you're not paying that one.
It's marketing.
Nick, do you think that you could integrate? I feel like it's tough with the type of work that you do to estimate that accurately, but do you think there would any way that you could integrate something like this to hold your employees to being more cognizant and more accountable for their hours?
It's something I think about a lot, because it is, it's tough because like as owner operator, we look at stuff. Oh, I could do that in a week. And then it's like you give it off to your team. And it's like, why'd that take 2 weeks? It's like, oh, they're just not, they're not thinking of it the way I'm thinking of it. But they're also, to answer your question, Tyler, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would
it's
like
tough
to think,
with the level of work that you do, because things just details take so much time, and it's hard to think them through until you're doing them, and there's not, you're not doing the same thing twice. But I also, and this isn't a knock at anyone who works for you, but I don't necessarily know if there's much accountability for the amount of time that people are spending on jobs. I feel like you foot that bill oftentimes, or a customer could foot that bill, where it's like, hey, this is our hard number on this job, and we need to hit this. And I don't know if it's I mean, it's not like that for me either, because my expenses are so low, and it's like, me and the one person, where it's, if we spend some extra time, that just cuts into my profit a little bit. But having that accountability for your time and having a mark that you're trying to hit, and understanding where those hours are and where you could borrow from and where you can tighten up and loosen up a little bit, I think would do amazing for what you're doing.
Nick, do you show them the P&Ls on jobs?
No. It's, we're actively trying to get to that point. But to what Tyler said, we're trying to, the estimating, the holding accountability, there is just so much detail in what we're doing. And the biggest thing that, that we're talking about internally is that we need to spend more time in the pre-construction phase of getting guys involved earlier in the project, and making sure that they're looking, because I spend weeks with these drawings before, or months with them, and I'm working on them, and I'm understanding the project on the paper, and then they go to the PM, and then he starts that process over, and then he gets it to the lead carpenter, and then he's starting that process over, where it's like we're not being as efficient as we should be, where it's like that really needs to be a collaborative effort right from the beginning and get it to the entire team. So I'm seeing most of the time is wasted, is that the guys are showing up on site and then like, all right, what are we doing today? Where it's like, if you understand what the end result is, you can kind of break down from there and understand what the steps are. So
yeah, but when do you get them involved when it's not a billable project? That's the glitch.
We don't. Not until.
But you want to bring it in. But you want to bring it in sooner, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but I mean, once the job is sold and we take a deposit, that's when the team will get involved into pre-construction. Because then it's billable, it's our project, and then we bring the PM, start working on it, and then we bring in lead carpenter and PM, comb through the job, go through questions, make sure we're answering things, and then it's off to start.
Mike, are your projects completely bought out, meaning that there's a sub list? Has the sub seen it? Is there a sub list where you have the option of going off reservation to buy a project down, meaning with a different electrician, different HVAC guy, different tile setter? How's that work?
We do. So we try to keep like a deep roster. We have 2 electricians. We'd like to have 3, 2 plumbers. We have 3 painters. Tile guy is impossible to find. But yeah, we have a roster, and then based on the job, I'll price it out. And then I can even go to other companies we haven't used, interview them, not necessarily for the job I'm starting in 2 weeks, but start to get pricing from them for the company. So we are constantly going out to be able to bring those numbers down based on the company we're using, because we do have trade partners. We call them partners because they've been with us for, some of them, 20 years, and they get the lion's share of our business. But we've been in situations to where something's happened to their business or them personally in their personal life, and then we've been screwed where we didn't have someone, so we got to keep that roster deep. And they know about it. They're still getting the lion's share, but if their prices start to increase, that can happen too. So if you're using someone primarily, they get comfortable. Oh, we pay all the time. DBS pays. You know, you got to keep them in check. It's like, hold on. We're also using XYZ plumbing, just so you know, on these jobs. So it's not a threat, but it also helps me out because I can start to get their estimates ahead of time on a kitchen I'm doing, and then I can choose who I want to use. It's put me into some challenging positions, but it keeps Brian from having to deal with it. But I have to just get my final proposals from them, and then I have to just clear it with him. I can't just say, yeah, go ahead and do it. I just have to say, hey, these are my 2 costs on plumbing. I want to go with this guy for this reason. Do I have the green light? And we're good to go. So I can have that flexibility on projects to use different subs on the job. And just like a project manager, you know who's going to be better on certain jobs. You know, if I'm doing a basement as opposed to, you know, custom trim, detailed work, you're going to pick your guy of who you want. So it's that's always the challenge, though, that I'm sure you guys feel the same way. Just having that depth on your bench and still use them, because if you want them active, you got to plug them in. So it's that whole balance. And as a few of we don't do plaster, we do drywall. And our guy that's been with us for 20 years, you know, he's looking off to the horizon a little bit. So we have a few other companies that just came in this year that are working out. But sometimes it's tough to find that match that you want for your company. It's not only just, you know, it's not just finding that sub, that company that does it. It's got to fit within your culture of what you're trying to run with your business. You know, you're clean, you're polite, they trust you. You're going to have this sub come in and be completely opposite. You know, walking up the stairs with their boots, oil dripping in the driveway. So it's all this vetting that you have to do as well.
What does it mean when drywallers looking off into the horizon? Are they just dying? They don't retire, do they?
I don't know if he will, but
they just sand less.
They have to.
It's less.
We don't want him to. You don't want him to because he's a true craftsman at his craft. So we don't want to lose him. I mean, he's family. But you got to think ahead too. We don't want to start that relationship when he's like, you know what, 6 months, I'm out of here. You know, we always have to be prepared as you know, anyone, all of us have to be prepared, even if it's an employee, to have that depth, which can be hard. We had one guy that we were bringing up the ladder here, was homegrown, farm team, really excited, ready to go out to be a project manager. And he gave us less than a week's notice and he's out. That's what's happening now. You know, everybody's busy, but now everyone that is good at what they do has a lot more choices to jump. And that's what we see, a lot of people jumping around because they can pick and choose with all these projects that are going on, all these companies that are busy. So again, you know, I know you guys are dealing with a lot of the same stuff, but what I was going to say was the reason that I even heard about your guys' podcast was the younger generation, these guys that we do have coming in from visiting the trade show or the trade school that I went to. They turned me on to it. You know, they say, I wasn't listening to any podcasts, but we were talking about the trades. We were talking about everything we're talking about now. And they're like, oh, you got to check out this podcast, The Modern Craftsman.
What trade school is that?
It's a BOCES vocational school.
A BOCES?
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And so, they've been listening to it in school.
They're listening to it. So they're listening at that school, and there's a trade college north of us in Oneonta, Delhi.
Yep.
So we've gotten that we
met the
those
Delhi guys at the International Builder Show.
Did we?
Yeah, at the Geldwin booth.
Okay.
I think.
Yes. Yeah, so
I know I talked to a few of them at the Geldwin booth. I think we actually met them somewhere else. But they have like a Carhartt uniform almost. Like I remember them all having a button.
Every trade.
A taupe button.
Are you still pretty involved with the trade school you went to?
Yeah, I went back. Brian was going back for years and talking to the students, using it as a resource because we would get like summer help. And then it was probably 5 years ago that he said, he knew I went there. So he said, why don't you come down and talk to the students? And I wanted to see the school. I hadn't been there in 25 years. And I didn't know what to expect. When I got down there, the whole program shrunk. The classes shrunk. They consolidated them down. There was about 12 students in there. They weren't going out in the field anymore for whatever reason. I don't know if it was insurance reasons. But when I was there, we were able to go work for non-for-profits. We would just take a bus out 3 days out of the week and go work and get that experience. They weren't doing that. So it's more of a controlled space in-house that they do this work. And I just go down there and tell them all the opportunities because we didn't have that when I went there. Just all the different paths you can take. Just what you guys are doing, the guests that you've had on, so many different ways companies are set up, so many different opportunities, the science behind it, just with you guys talking about that, having Ross on with all that end of it, of just the inside engineering part of it. They say STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. It covers construction. And a lot of these students, guys and girls, they think they're introduced to swinging a hammer, cutting some 2x4s, and they think that's what a carpenter is going to be doing. But I tell them that it's just a stepping stone to where they can go. You can be a home inspector. You can own your own business. You can go into land surveying. It's endless of the opportunities from a smaller scale to a large scale, like working for Suffolk, working down in New York City, being a project manager. It goes on and on. So I think it's getting that message out to these students, to these kids. And then it grew from there. I was able to get into some local high schools because some math teachers were looking for some people with their careers and said, hey, you want to share how you use math? So I was able to get in there. I was like, why not? And they're not looking at it. I brought a transit in, started showing the elevations. It's the Pythagorean theorem that we use for stairs, for rafters. How many times do we use that? Tile layout. So we can go on, and we're passionate about it. But the message isn't really being put out there. And I asked the students in the high schools, I said, are they talking about construction at all as far as a career? And most of them say no, they're not. And it's like, why not? I'm not saying you got to bring the shop class back to where you're making birdhouses and coat hangers. You know what I mean? Bring in
napkin
a class
holders.
Napkin holders. I made a CD holder.
What's a CD?
It has its place. Yeah, CD. I'm aging myself. It has its place.
Dude, I still have CDs in my truck. Like
I still have 8-track
CD player, and I play them in my truck all the time.
That's called a hoarder.
Well, I feel like you're a good advocate. So so many people feel in residential construction and to be doing small jobs that you either need to work for somebody as a helper, a lower pay grade, or if you want to make more money, you go out on your own. And it's nice to see. And I feel like you have the experience and you are living a life where you didn't, you kind of reverted back to working for somebody, but you're still doing what you want to do. And sure, you're never going to be rich doing this, but you're able to afford a modest lifestyle and kind of provide and have an honorable, respectful craft and living. And it's good to show that to kids, because I feel like everyone thinks that, you're either going to make no money and you can never retire and you can't have a career, and there's not companies out there that can support a wage for somebody who's talented, or you got to go off on your own. And you've found a little spot for you within this company that you're proving a lot of those people wrong and that it can be done.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's finding the right company if you're going to be an employee, and then taking it to, look at your guys' examples of what you can do with a company in different ways. And it's not only what you make, it's what you can save being in the industry. I tell the students my story, and I don't tell them to say, hey, this is what I've done, as far as being, bragging about it. But I was able to build a house and save a ton of money. I was able to clear the lot and do this work. Now, also by telling them the story, I'm not trying to persuade them. And that's the first thing I tell them. I said, we're not down here trying to persuade you into the trades because it's the best thing out there. It's tough. It's a grind. You're going to deal with the weather, especially up here in the Northeast, of freezing your ass off or dying of heat, and everything we talk about. It's not easy, but if it's something you love doing and you have a passion for, it's not. You guys would agree. For the most part, it's not work.
Is it?
You get a lot of.
Is it easier to work on your own house when it's not your company? Because I feel like even with the tools and everything, I'm set up on a job. I do not want to come home and work.
Yeah, it's for the most part, it's easy, but there's sometimes that I have, just like everyone. I'm not completely undone, but I have a few things here and there that are just waiting to be finished.
Yeah.
But it's not this typical.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No idea.
But that's it, because we can do it. So we're going to have a lot more projects that are in the midst of being done because we can tear into them. So I think it's just another benefit of being in the trades, being in this industry. And then, another thing is we have a guy that just started this year? Yeah, this year or last year. And he was in the restaurant business, a general manager. So he came on as operations support manager here, working in this industry. There's a lot of parallels. So he can come in, he can manage, he can help hire, he can schedule, he can have that interaction with employees. So you can bring other people from other industries in, because a lot of what we do is very similar. And it's not just construction. We have a girl here who's awesome at sales, and she was selling hardscape and pools for years. She comes in, she has to understand the industry, of course, but selling is selling. She can get out there. She has a gift in selling, making that connection with people, and she's killing it. And she doesn't have a career in construction, but she can come in with that skill. There's marketing. There's this technology that everyone uses, the chief architect. We can take a plan, the chief architect, and put it into virtual reality. So these kids that are into technology, that's what we tell them. There's a lot more beyond the belt that you can do in this industry that can help companies like ours, like you guys, now more than ever because of the technology. And we need them. The being in the field, that's a stepping stone, or obviously there's a lot of guys that and girls that like to be in it and stay in it. Such as myself, I want to stay in the field as long as I can, but still have plans of an end game and being able to continue on maybe when I don't want it every day. Just have that choice. But nice. The trades, that's why I just wanted to let you guys know. You have the young generation who turned me on to this podcast. So they're helping me out when I'm trying to help them out.
It's crazy.
I hope they get to listen to
this. Think about the reach either. When you're in the grind and the day-to-day of it, oftentimes you kind of forget about the bigger picture, and then to hear that, it's kind of reaffirming for all the effort that goes into it. But I feel just as much as what we're doing, I think, again, like I just said, that you're a perfect model for what a career in the trades can look like, and like what's actually important in life, and kind of finding your path and creating that path within the trades. And I think that it's a good opportunity for you to get your story out there, and the people are going to hear that. And I'm very excited for it, just because I'm just like you. I want to be in the field. I don't enjoy the business end of things. I like the day-to-day grind, and there's days that I don't want to be doing it, but it's nice to know that at some point I can close everything down and go work for someone.
That'll happen.
You guys, what are the offers? Anything good?
I can't beat Nick. So what's the point?
You're closer to us. So come on.
We got $1,000 dinner and a van waiting for you. Mike, I really appreciate you coming on tonight,
hold
man.
on. I want to know what Mike's end game is. He hinted at it.
I was just thanking him. I feel like he's done a lot of talking. Wanted to thank him.
I thought you were closing it up. My bad. Good.
I mean,
golf clubs
we're
in the
getting
background,
close,
John.
Oh, those are the boys. They went golfing. Hunter shot an 82.
Mike, what is your end game? I'm stealing John's question while he's looking for his golf clubs.
It's reversed on the screen. Sorry.
Well, I'm just trying to absorb as much as possible from
that's awesome.
Still. And, 30 years in, man, I feel like there's so much more to still know. And with all the new products coming out, bathrooms alone, I do a lot of bathrooms. So whether it's Schluter, Weedy, all these products, Go Board, Thinset, what you should be using with what, that's a science in itself. That's going to continue to change, continue to get better. The technology, I want to continue to know more about that. The sales, estimating. That's what's nice about working here, is that they'll continue to leave that wide open. How much do you want to know? How much do you want to get involved? And in one way, I have to know running my job, because if I'm running a job and I don't know a lot of the estimating, a lot of what went into it, it's harder to do my job as, the way I should be doing it. So I'm just trying to take it all in as much as possible. Podcast, now that I'm on podcast, I wasn't on podcast. Thanks to, I'll even give him a shout out, Brian Carrero and Dan Arquette. These two guys, young guys, passionate about the trades, got me. They kept talking about podcasts. What's a podcast? I had no idea. No idea.
Like
he said, if
like
you
a
ever start
CD kind of, but on
yeah,
the computer.
I didn't know how. Yeah, and I didn't even know how easy it was. So this guy Dan sends me the link. He said, "Hey, when you're tiling and doing some grout, throw this one on." So finally, I just took the 3 minutes and I downloaded the podcast app, started playing it, and I was like, "Damn, that was easy." It was. Sometimes you think shit's so hard, and it's not. And it's been such a value So I thank you guys, because of the guests you've had on, the all-stars you've had on and even the Hall of Famers like Norm. And it brings me back to, back in the day, my youth, watching those guys. And I mean, Gary Katz, meeting him at JLC. So it's opened a lot of doors for a lot of different ways of thinking. So my end game just being taking everything in. Way down the road, wouldn't mind being an inspector. But I talked to Brian, who, he's 35 years in the company. And now I've been here 18 years, and we have that conversation, and it's easy to have. I just had it probably like 2 weeks ago. And I'm always asking him, so what are you doing? Do you want to, not that he has to tell me his end game, but I know respectively he will, because he has, 20 employees and families he has to consider. But he may want to sell the company. He may just want to be done with it as well. But as far as 2 weeks ago, he's not. But we talk about what our end game is and what we want to do, and it's good to have one. But I want to stay in the industry. So the short story is long that, building inspecting interests me because I like the intricate ins and outs of it, the codes, the science of it. That's where I think I would like to stay, as long as I stay in the industry. But we'll see what happens.
You have construction just running through your blood.
Well, it was in my family, and my brother's an architect, so I can use him as a resource. Just always loved it, man. It's definitely that passion, but you do, and I hear you guys saying it, you can drive 1 week and say, should I still be doing this? And I, even as an employee,
we said it last week. So we started
last
the podcast.
night.
I've said it too, but it keeps bringing you back. I think of, I've taken martial arts over the course of my life, and I started taking jiu-jitsu with my daughter a few years ago. You can get nailed on the mat where you're tapping out, but for some reason you keep going back because you learn more and more. And when I first tried jiu-jitsu, I came in and I went down on the mat, and this guy, he said, okay. He put me in a position to where I needed to get out of it. And I just went, my daughter was there. She was learning it too. Everyone's sitting around the mat, so I'm on the spot. So I don't want to be embarrassed in front of my daughter, right? So I just go full throttle, knees, elbows, just flaring all over the place. So I could tell he's waiting me out, and that's the whole technique, with jiu-jitsu. You're waiting out. And he's going where I roll, and he's going back the other way. And then within 4 seconds, he's got me tied up, and I'm tapping out. And I think it's the same thing with this business. We come in hard as someone that wants to start their own company. We come in knees and elbows. We want to just take on everything possible. And as we learn over the years, it's really the subtle moves, knowing to bend with the pressure instead of going against it. And otherwise you're going to tap out soon. So that's what I like about it. It's an art. And I know it's deep and it seems, but there's a lot of parallels with that, because what brings us back is being able to get those techniques better to where we can conquer more and get to where we want to get, whether myself working for a company or you guys working for a business or, having your own business. So it's a grind, but all in all, we love it until, I don't know, maybe, there are people that just tap out for good.
I feel like the failures do bring you back. It's like, I can do better than this.
Yeah.
You're just like,
They haunt you.
never being completely content.
Yep. So it's a good thing.
Is it?
I think so. I think so.
Kidding. No, it's true. I've never really thought of it. You know, the constant improvement, and like John, you said, it haunts you, but at the same time, it's like because you can't you're better, and it's like you just constantly want to improve upon it, and that's what my entire team's mentality is constantly improving. So I think when we are faced with failure or a challenge, and we don't, uphold our end of the bargain, it's like, all right, well, we did our best. Let's do it better next time.
Or if you're like in the middle of something at the end of the day and not wanting to stop because you just want to figure it out, or then actually having to leave, and then you're just sitting there like, I can't wait to get back to the job tomorrow to get back into this to figure out what the heck's going on.
Did you guys see The Last Dance with Michael Jordan?
Started
like
watching
3 episodes, yeah.
If you get to like the seventh episode,
I might just jump to that. Go ahead.
I think it's the seventh or eighth episode. It's with I think it was B.J. Armstrong, and they talked about playing with him and what it was like to be a teammate. And it was Jordan talking about the price of being a leader, the price of being a winner, the toll it took on him. And those are the things you don't see. It's just those little things that you can relate to your own life, whether you're a business owner. There's a price for leadership. There's a price that you're going to have to pay to ultimately win at what you're doing. And it was just a great way to describe it, especially from someone that's so well known, like Jordan and what he did. And he was saying in that clip, he not only did it for himself, but he did it for his teammates. And they show, each teammate coming up and having those victories when they won all those championships. It was just a good clip and pretty inspiring, and a good way to look at it when you feel the load of being that leader, or the price you got to pay to win at what you want to do.
I saw a bunch of that where he used to write. I mean, he wrote himself very hard, but he wrote his teammates hard too. And I feel like if they weren't successful, he would have just come off as being a huge dick. But when you gain those accolades, and when, all the hard work and the competitive nature ends up paying off, people respect you for it. Because I think that it's way more than just being a jerk or riding somebody or pushing somebody to their limits. It's about kind of getting the best out of people and exposing how much potential they actually have.
And then your team seeing you put as much into it, if not more, than they are. So that was his biggest thing. When your team sees that you're grinding it out and you're putting in all these hours and all this time and all this stress and all the emotions, that makes a big difference too. Because if you just have someone that's just giving orders and expecting the team to do something that you're not going to get as much of a response or respect.
No, you have to be willing to put that work in too.
You know what's funny is I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I 100% agree with you. And that's kind of been my motto my whole life is work hard, and then people will want to follow along. Now I'm at a point where it's like, maybe I just need to show that I'm successful, because I think a lot of people that are either coming up in our company, they're going to be with me for a couple of years. Maybe it's 2-3 years, and go, dude, I don't want what he does. I don't want to work 6 days a week, never shut off, can't get out of my head. If that's what the future holds, dude, I'm out. And then I look at like AFT and Patterson. I'm like, yeah, I'm not looking at like the hustlers. I'm looking at like the guys that are like the Fox group, like Tom and Kat. Like, how big is that flag that they're flying off the front of their porch? Is that like a 60-foot flag? Like, I have a 5-foot flag that we raise and put down at half mast. like the hustle's been great, and it's been a great, what do I want to say? Distraction while I pursue this industry. But at some point, it's like, Nick, you got to stop chalking stuff up to marketing, or I have to stop chalking stuff up to experience. Oh yeah, you know what? I was with that person for 3 years, hated it,
Right.
but got some great experience. You know
Yeah.
what? It's got to come to an end. It's like, now I want to really have a nice house that, like, that's what the guys are going to work for. They're going to put
Mhm.
the effort in that we put in, because they'll get a nice house.
Right.
You know, they'll get an income property. They'll have the question I had for you about, like, what's the end game? Like, we just did the 401k. Literally, it comes out the first time next week for everything. And honestly, I couldn't wrap my head around spending $1,100 on implementing a system that it's like, what do you do? Like, what am I paying you $1,100 for? Like, can't you just hit a button and just start the 401k? We take money out and you put it in. And then it's like, I got hung up on that for a little bit. And then I was like, no, I told myself this year we were starting a 401k. And again, it's not so much for me. I mean, I'm 40 for another day. And it's like, how do I get it for the other guys that are in this, you know, that are starting into it? Because I think that's the biggest hurdle, when your friends and everyone's like, oh, well, I get this for a benefit, and we don't.
Well, did you ever read the book Traction? I think it's Gino Wickman.
I just read that. Great book.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as having a vision for yourself and for the company, it's a great book. So we sat down as a company and a leadership team. You just had someone on. He was the guy that was running all the time. It sounded like he was touching on a lot of the traction points as far as having
Matt,
a 1 month
yeah,
goal.
Matt Troyer.
Forrest Gump.
Yeah, Matt Troyer, because it's, you know, having your 1 month goal, your
Yeah.
90. Yeah, that's a lot like traction. So you delegate these responsibilities within your team. They call them rocks. So based on your vision that you guys want, you get that feedback from your team and the vision that you want as an owner. And you share that, because where do you want to be? And Brian here said he doesn't want to be, if he's going to do this and continue to do this, he wants to be able to take more time off. He wants the team to be able to take on the responsibilities. And you got to make sure everyone is on the same page, because otherwise you might just be guessing what everyone else's vision is, and to share what the vision is for your company, like you said.
But what's
So
he doing for you in your retirement, in your end game?
Well, there's, like, specifically, I mean, there's a retirement plan here. So then he contributes a percentage. I can, you know, it's taken out of my check weekly. And then he contributes, I forget the percentage, it might be 3 or 4% to that. That is set up on whether or not we want to take advantage of it or not. And then the profit sharing. So it's
That's huge. I think
offering,
people need to hear that, because if there's people in the same situation as you that are busting their butt, and those bonuses because of COVID went from monthly to, you know, every 6 months, you know, it should leverage people to try and ask for a little bit more. Or, you know, a 401k, maybe it's not matching, but at least it's a 401k that they're pulling out a little bit of percentage of your pay, that it is going away somewhere. I'm not saying the stock. I joked and said to my boys, the guys in the company, that, hey, you know what? Stock market's going to crash. You guys get in so dirt cheap. That's why I'm doing this. Like, so it's like,
Yeah.
we're finally doing it. I told them I'm going to put all my money on red. Just put it all on Apple. We're like, oh, just put it all there. All $200. But no, I guess it's more that we never really talk about that. We've talked about it here and there, that it would make a big point, but knowing that there is something beyond just that check, and you know, getting that kitchen done for an end game is crucial.
and then sharing the responsibilities so you guys aren't weighed down. You know, delegating, you know, based on, you know, your employees and what they can handle, their personality type. So you can delegate certain things to them. You know, I heard you guys talking about the safety, but we delegated safety to this one guy, Brian, who has been a volunteer fireman for.
It might be the same guy as Nick. Is he $67 a week?
I don't know. You know,
Not the same guy.
Just,
I think so.
it might be. That's his side gig.
I love the quiet.
I don't have anything to say anymore. Apparently, everyone reached out to you, said that they agree with you that safety guys suck, and everyone reached out to me and said, "Tell John to go F himself. Safety guys, he's a help."
You know, those people can DM me directly.
Yeah, DM
I'm
John.
kind of annoyed that Troyer was sitting here just regurgitating a book and
Seriously.
acting like it was all his own thoughts.
Whose house was that in?
I think it was one of my dogs got like their tails stepped on or something. That's what it sounded like. I'm just messing around, Matt.
I guess we should finish it off if we're going to do it. Is that question that was asked on the survey. What would you tell your younger self when you were getting in the business that you know now?
To read more, do more research, and just, you know, I was always asking more the veterans questions, but I think for me it was just I should have, like JLC, I should have researched more of what was out there at the time to be able to take advantage of. If you're pertaining to the industry, that's what I would have done there. I think it would have fast-tracked me more. I think I took the long way around, but that's good and bad.
Yeah,
it's good because
I don't feel
Yeah.
like that's a terrible thing. I think that I don't know. We all learn at our own pace, and I always feel like you get to where you are because of a lot of different. There's a lot that goes into that, and I don't think that it's one or two things that could have changed or gotten you to where you're supposed to be a little bit faster. And I feel like the pace at which you came into the industry and where you are now, that's the pace that it worked out for you, and you're in the position that you are now because of all of that. And I don't know. I feel like that whole fast tracking thing it might work for some people, but I think that we all have to just kind of take our own pace at this and do what's good for you.
But I also think to that, I mean, when I grew up, there was no one that was like mid-20s owning their own company and super successful. You know, when I
Right.
was 17, 18, it was all 50-year-olds that own their own company.
I think a lot of
Mhm.
that is just like technology and information at hand. It's so much
No,
easier.
But I guess my point is it wasn't a rush for me. It was like, you know what? This is going to be a journey. Like to become a master carpenter or a master builder, it was never, I thought it was something that I would never be able to achieve. So like to say that you went about it a different way, I think, dude, when I grew up, there was encyclopedias. I had to go to Heartland and get a new edition of the encyclopedia at the end of the aisle every month. Like now it's like,
Right.
my kids don't ask me questions because I'm stupider than Google. Why would they ask me when they can just look it
Right.
up?
You were getting new
Yep.
encyclopedias every month.
Well, that's my
Yep.
mom. We go to Heartland and they'd have the new issue, whatever it was.
No, you'd upgrade.
Yeah, dude, it's like
I
I'll
don't know what
get
Heartland
12
is.
editions by the end of the year. Like that wasn't like awesome. It was like 20.
So there's
I had to wait 2
John.
years.
And you wondered why people called you encyclopedia growing up. He always had so many encyclopedias in his backpack. He was small, but his backpack was huge. And then they came out those backpacks with wheels. He used to just wheel his
that's like
encyclopedias
copping
around
out.
all the time.
That's like no, I wouldn't be able to do my book report because I didn't have that encyclopedia.
The updated version.
Yeah. And you had to go research and then
Go to
go to the library if you didn't have it. Yep.
Yeah,
And microfiche. Remember that?
yeah, I do actually. That's painful. Nick doesn't.
See, so I couldn't.
Yeah, I
couldn't
definitely
go
don't know what that is.
So I wasn't able to go get some microfiche and find out more about, you know, some techniques, skills and techniques.
Newspaper article was on like this little clear.
Oh, that's what that's called?
Yeah, and you'd
I know
like
what that
wheels and you'd wheel it by.
Yeah.
I saw 90. I do think there's a lot, we talked about this before, of fast food fast food knowledge on social and everything else. That you talked about JLC. I think we've all talked about fine home building in the past. There's a lot of good spots that still exist that haven't died yet. That there's some unbelievable information from that you can get from.
One thing that's a lot of people I don't think understand right now with social media, anyone can put anything out and you see it and you believe it. Anything that Fine Home Build, I haven't worked with JLC, but like even Fine Home Building, anything that they publish, they spend so much time fact checking, and they, you know, things get slipped through the cracks or somebody calls them out on it and they'll next issue correct it. But in magazines like that, in magazines like JLC, you can find good information that's been fact checked,
Right.
and you know, it's a credible source for you, especially for the younger people getting into this. You see a lot of stuff on the internet, see a lot of people on social media, and just because you see it there doesn't necessarily mean it's right. And I think that those resources, like, they're there and they are big names within the industry, and the people that they showcase, it's for a reason. And I think that it's a really good resource for you where you're going to find quality information that's kind of tried and true and tested.
Going decades back.
Yeah.
Right. Been there so long.
Yeah.
So
I just didn't realize
and
how
have followed.
much that they're going through, where I'll write an article and they'll send me questions that is just like, I don't even think about that. And they're like, well, we have to fact check all of this. And then we have to be prepared for the one reader who's sitting there like asking this question. So they go through and make sure it's impossible to get everything, but that what they're putting in their pages is accurate.
No, it's true. It depends on, you got to be careful where you get information. You know, with anything, even new products.
But
we have to be careful with what we're using.
But think about kids now. Like, how are they going to judge good information? That guy's got 100,000 followers.
Yeah.
Like, does that deem them credible? Like, it's what I don't understand. Like, if we get a lot of DMs and a lot of questions, like, how do you learn things? And it's like, what is credible? It's like getting a blue star or whatever they have. Like, what is it that makes that person credible? You know, you don't know the back end of their business. You don't know if they're actually profitable, if every client hates them. Like, you don't know any of that. But just because they film themselves, it's tough. That's why Fine Home Building, I do think it is not even just the magazine, the books. Like, I can't tell you how many Christmases I asked for a different book, whether it
all
was
the Taunton press books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought Taunton was, I used to drive through Taunton, Mass and be like, dude, they're in here somewhere.
I still have like all my old books right next to me. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's funny. I think we talked about this way back, that our basement flooded because we have copper pipes on a well. So anything horizontal sits and eats away. And my wife, I came home one day and she had all Fine Home Building books on the kitchen table drying out. Out of all the stuff to save downstairs, she grabbed all those. So it's,
that's nice.
I used to joke, and I used to have them like framing. I used to have them underneath my seat.
Oh yeah.
And I used to say to people, they'd be like, "Oh, you're doing pretty good." I'm like, I got the book, how-to book underneath my seat. And for the first couple of years, bro, I did.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I remember I sold a job doing crown molding, and I had no idea how to do it. And I had the book, and I just right beside my saw the whole time. All right, now I lay this upside down, make that. Oh, damn it, I did it backwards.
But you know the difference, though, Nick? Back then, you probably sold that job for like nothing. So you.
Oh yeah, of course.
Today, people are doing the exact same thing and selling it for a huge amount of money because the demand is so huge. So I think the backlash that's going to come out of this whole thing is worse. So that's the biggest thing, is how do you get educated with, you know, especially now that things are going to go remote.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it's going to, I had a call with Brett Hall about North Bennett Street School just yesterday, trying to figure out what it is that they're doing, because they should be the role model for how trade schools go remote.
Right.
And it could be a huge, huge thing for the industry, that they go from 25 students to 150 or whatever. And it's, how do they do that? So when we get off of this, I have some ideas.
Mike, appreciate you being on, man.
Thanks for the opportunity, man.
Absolutely.
It was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for making it work. You're on
Yes,
the
sir.
clock too, though, so send us a little bit of a cut of that.
Yeah.
You know,
Spread that over the
punch
jobs.
your time card when you got to the office. He's like, yeah, I picked up speed on this job. We're fine. So I'm just gonna go into the office and get a little paperwork done.
Yeah, just they think I'm burning the midnight oil here. You see
You're
my truck
burning
out front,
hours,
the lights
burning
are on.
hours,
Hey,
man.
still working. Yeah, burning through them.
I
This is awesome.
We appreciate it. It's I'm glad to get the word out for you. I think, like I said, that your career path and everything else is a pretty good model for people who want to get into the trades to know that there's a ton of options out there.
And that's what we're just trying to do locally. You know, there's maybe we're not moving the needle so much locally, but it's just getting the word out of the opportunities that are here, and you guys are doing the same. So it's enjoy listening to your guys' podcast, and you have some awesome guests on here. So again, it's thanks for the opportunity. It was just a quick message to Nick when we were shut down in March.
Yeah.
And you had Gary Katz on, and I think you said, hey, why not? I'm just going to ask him if he'll come on. And I was outside working on my porch, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do the same, and just shot it to you.
There we go.
But I didn't realize you guys were that far booked out, but that's cool. It all worked out.
Yeah, it worked out.
It's
I mean,
perfect.
I forgot who you were until today. So.
The mystery guest.
Yeah.
It's perfect. We it's nice to have somebody come on who works for someone too, because it's just a nice perspective to have, where it's not like one of our employees, or it's good to see somebody who's not a business owner, or maybe who has been a business owner, come on. I think that it's a completely different, you have a viewpoint that's different than a lot of owners within the trades, and you still have some of that responsibility, but it's good to hear your perspective compared to a lot of the people we have on week in and week out.
Well, plus if someone's on their own and they just can't do it anymore or don't want to do it anymore, you can, if you're with the right company, you can continue on. And we've had a few of them since I've been here, just they, for different reasons, had to shut their business down. And, there's a soft spot for me when they come on board, because I know what they're going through, and it's tough. I mean, you have a dream to have your own business. The timing may not be right. How you're set up may not be right. And when they come on board, it's just letting them know that you can have that back to where you get that passion back. So
yeah,
I think that's important to know. Yeah.
Give them a place for them to be successful too.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, be well, Mike. Stay in touch.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
All right, you too. Thanks again.
See you, dude.
See ya.
You guys.
Got a couple of reviews I have pulled up. My favorite is from Steve Joyce Jr.
Whoa.
Podcast is all right. It's a pretty good podcast. Somehow, I've listened to every episode.
I think I read that the other day. It was really good.
So appreciate that, Steve. I hope you listen to this one. Consistently good podcast. While the guys might be in one similar region, they all have completely different perspective and experiences to share, and that doesn't even consider the solid guest. Being in my mid-20s and extremely passionate about the industry, it's nice to hear from good role models and see examples of what I can become. I appreciate the time you all put into this, and it's a pleasure to be able to hear these conversations. Keep it up. From Reviewing It One.
Yeah, we're up to like 27 surveys.
Sweet. Yeah, if you guys want to leave a review, any of the podcast apps, I read the ones off iTunes because it's easy for me. Just going to be real. But if you guys want to leave some real feedback, there is a link on our Instagram account, Survey Monkey. Johnny's put some questions up there to help shape it. We're basically crushing it. We're doing exactly what you guys want. But
It looks pretty good.
Still want some feedback.
Yeah.
And for everyone that wanted an hour-long podcast, sorry, today's 3 hours.
I forget how. I think
Maybe
it's only
next week, guys.
Only one person. One
Just run a
person's
whole-
only one person. 12 have asked for 3 hours plus. 14 have asked for 2. And one person, 4% has asked for 1 hour.
Sorry, 4%. All right, guys. You know where to find us. We'll see you guys next week. And just a reminder.
Keep the shares coming.
Oh, yeah. Monographs on Monday, right?
You got it.
Let us know if you like our singing. And just a reminder that this podcast is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. Love the durability of PVC moldings, but frustrated by the constant movement of PVC with changes in temperature? The answer is Duration Moldings, Millwork, and Siding. Duration is durable like PVC, but miter and butt joints stay tight, so your craftsmanship endures. In addition to its ability to be easily sanded and filled, there is no need to be concerned about paint color with Duration. Paint that material any color you'd like with standard latex paints. Dark green, red, jet black, it doesn't matter. Bottom line, Duration is easy to work with, installs and finishes quickly, and looks just like wood.
Black.
Jet black.
Just so we heard that right.
Yeah. To learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website, durationmillwork.com.